Good afternoon. It is afternoon. Today is Thursday, March 21st. We're the Education and Culture Committee. We're here to discuss several items. We have 3 items on the agenda today, and I'm joined by my colleagues on the committee, Councilmembers Albernaz and Mink, and we're also joined by Councilmembers Balcom and Councilmember Lukey. And we always like visitors, as I say. And we have 3 items. We're going to continue and put a bow on, hopefully, the CIP for Montgomery County Public Schools, and then we'll talk about the CIP and finish up with Wheaton Arts and Cultural Center, and then our 3rd item is Montgomery College enrollment update. So we're going to start with the CIP, and just want to remind, I want to thank our staff, Ms. McGuire, Mr. Lepchenko, for all the work, and I know the work continues, but the work up until this point. The CIP is a big pie that we're always trying to fit together, and there's never enough pie, and so we are always, it's a delicate balance. And we're also this year, and I really appreciate my colleagues on the committee, trying to be really intentional about making sure that we're telling the truth and having the appropriate levels of funding for things we know are going to happen, like the systemic. So we've been sticking to that, and I believe hopefully that'll continue throughout the entire CIP process. Grateful to our colleagues at MCPS as well for being, and OMB for being just great partners as we've requested these non-recommended cuts. We're always reminded they are non-recommended. We would all want everything to happen, but we just realize that is not possible with the resources we have. So this is our fourth and final work session on the CIP for MCPS. And I'm going to turn it over to council staff to lead us through the packet, and we have several, kind of just things that we've already decided, but just to reaffirm and make some final decision points. So I think we'll start with Mr. Lepchenko.
Yeah, I'll provide an overview of where things are at this point and some new things, and then Ms. McGuire will walk us through quickly some of the specifics. Just as you noted, we've had several work sessions, and most notably last week's work session we talked a lot about the non-recommended reductions and the 2 different scenarios that MCPS provided to the committee. The committee expressed support for scenario A as a starting point. We want to emphasize this does not mean the committee is actively supporting every reduction that's in scenario A, but they like the philosophy of scenario A, and we can work from that as we work towards reconciliation. And we do need a baseline to work from, and the committee was supportive of that scenario as that baseline.
Yeah, and Mr. Lepchenko, I'm glad you said that. I'll state that in a slightly different way, that if we can get other things in, and we will, in light of that, but that's the approach we're taking. We have to make sure we account for those things. So I appreciate you bringing that point up. Right.
And most notably, as we discussed, the scenario A does provide additional resources. It doesn't just cut, but it also adds in the out years for a number of systemic projects, which was something that the GO committee as well as council staff had been working with OMB and MCPS on for some time. So there was already a lot of discussion about that, and the committee was supportive of that concept as well. Of course, we'll see how much of that we can accommodate in the reconciliation, but we like starting there as we mentioned before, as a baseline to try to see how much of that we can fit in, as you mentioned, the truth in budgeting. So that's our goal. For today's work session, we have tried to wrap everything up. There are a few new things I wanted to mention, or new items that are noted in the packet. Some additional communications that the committee has received from fellow council members. A couple are here today, as well as from the Montgomery County Senate delegation, so we can talk about that a little bit after we get through this packet. And then also we had on March 14th the county executive's recommendations that came over on the operating budget, but also there were a number of CIP recommendations. And there were a couple of recommendations specific to the MCPS CIP, and I've noted them on page 3 of the packet. The executive updated his affordability reconciliation project to provide a little more capacity with current revenue for the technology modernization project. This is more of a capacity issue about how much space there is in the CIP. The project itself will be discussed in the context of the MCPS operating budget later in April. So the committee and then ultimately the council can decide on how much current revenue is available in the CIP and whether it should go further to this project or elsewhere. We can talk about that at a later date. We don't need to talk about it specifically today, but just to note that that did come over from the executive. The other one is a placeholder project. It's called Building Towards a Structurally Balanced CIP. And it's getting at what we talked about a little bit earlier about the out years of the CIP. And we mentioned how with the systemic projects, they were light on a number of those projects. And the executive has noted his support for that approach, which is helpful to hear, and is also recommending some additional macro adjustments, once again, later in the CIP to support some additional funding for MCPS in those years. Once again, we can deal with that as part of the broader reconciliation. The committee doesn't have to make a decision on that today, but I just wanted to note that the executive is trying to work towards the same result that we are here, and we'll try to take that into account as we go forward.
I think this executive quote cited the work of the committee, I think, in that communication, so we appreciate the acknowledgement of that we're trying to work together towards that goal.
So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. McGuire.
Ms. McGuire, if we go, is
Sure.
Mr. Adams coming?
He is
He's
not.
not able to be here today. Okay. Could you just introduce yourself?
Sure.
Let's just do that real quick.
I'm Adrienne Karamihas. I'm the Director of Capital Planning for Montgomery County Public Schools.
Got it. Is Ms. LaGrange? Yeah. Okay. No, I don't see. Wasn't someone?
Ms. LaGrange is here today to speak if
Oh,
there
when
are
we get to that.
questions on the Damascus,
Perfect.
when
All
we
right.
get to
Yeah.
the discussion around the Damascus programming.
Yeah. Cut
She'll be happy to
wait.
join
Yeah.
us at
Stay
that
out of the hot seat as long as possible. Yeah. I've been looking right at you there. And then Ms. Hawa, thank you for being here as always. Yeah. From ONB. Okay. Go ahead, Ms. McGuire.
Thank you. The remainder of the packet really is our attempt to summarize all of the extensive discussion that the committee has had and to really crystallize it into the form of the recommendations that we've heard from that discussion. And this, of course, is, as you said, the intent for today is to review this, have any further discussion that's necessary on aspects of it, and then, of course, we will turn that around for your committee's recommendation to the County Council, which that review is scheduled for the morning of April 2nd. So I'll just briefly walk through the sections of that. We have tried to capture literally everything so that hopefully it can all be found here. As has discussed, this does take the non-recommended scenario A as the starting point. And from that baseline, again, what we've reflected here are the discussions and the priorities that the committee has identified through that. The primary philosophical purpose and approach of Scenario A is to prioritize funding for the systemic infrastructure projects, include future funds in the out years of the CIP that are anticipated to be requested and needed, and to, as was said, structure a sequence and a schedule that is maintainable and hopefully brings fewer delays in future CIPs. So the first section here on page 4 of your packet identifies individual projects that are not impacted from the Board of Education's request. And so I'll just list them briefly here: Burtonsville Elementary, Lellick at Broad Acres Elementary, Crown High School, Greencastle Elementary, Highland View Elementary, Page Elementary, Silver Spring International Middle, Neelsville Middle, Poolsville High School, Northwood High School, Woodward High School, and Piney Branch Elementary School Major Capital Project, which has planning funds. All of those projects are recommended to move forward on the requested schedule by the board. I would just comment that most of those are currently in progress in some way, if not in construction, imminently in construction, or again, very close at hand. So the Burtonsville replacement and Lellick replacement are early in the CIP, but again, were maintained in Scenario A and certainly were identified as a high priority by the committee. The next set of projects are removed they are newly requested projects. So these are 3 addition projects that were newly requested to be included in the CIP, and their funding would be removed under this reduction scenario. That's Mill Creek Town Elementary School, Blake High School, and Paint Branch High School. The committee discussion of these projects did, of course, elevate that Mill Creek Town among those 3 it has certainly the highest level of overutilization, and again could potentially be a candidate for restoration if funds are available during reconciliation. The committee also had extensive discussion regarding the elementary major capital projects. Cold Spring, Damascus, Twin Brook, and Whetstone elementary schools. Ultimately, scenario A does preserve the planning funds for those projects and shifts the construction funds for those projects, which are at this point placeholder fiscal capacity funds, shifts them later into the CIP. And the committee had extensive discussion around doing that planning work, but coming back with more information in the coming months around what a sequencing might look like, what other sustainable approaches to those projects might look like, and just different options for really addressing the infrastructure and the needs of those schools. But again, having that planning work as a way to really be able to analyze how they would ultimately sequence into the CIP. Coming to the high schools, scenario A does assume, and the committee did not at this time recommend changes to the following 3 high schools in the Board of Education's I'm sorry, let me restate that. The following 3 high schools are impacted by scenario A. Damascus High School, the construction for Damascus High School would be shifted to FY29 with a TBD completion date. The committee, of course, had extensive discussion around Damascus High School, and I know we'll come back to some of those discussion points around the project itself, as well as the automotive programming aspect of that project. I will note that at the last meeting, the committee did request that MCPS provide a written formal plan and response of how that programming would be expanded in the up-county area going forward. Magruder High School would have the funding removed and again be considered in future CIP cycles. For Wheaton High School, MCPS, and under this scenario, would maintain the funding in FY25 and 26, which is intended to address exterior improvements and the related ADA modifications that are part of both the building and that exterior. MCPS did report at the last work session that that would address the bulk of the outstanding ADA access concerns, and the remainder of the building renovations would then be shifted to a later phase in an out year of the CIP. The committee did identify Eastern Middle School as a high priority for restoration from the non-recommended reduction shift out of to the out years of the CIP, and identified that as a high priority to bring back as close to the requested schedule as possible. The committee also recommended shifting the funds for the planning of the new Bethesda Chevy Chase and Walter Johnson Cluster Elementary School to the out years of the CIP. Given the utilization and capacity information of the clusters at this time, it seems less pressing to do in the early years. However, the committee did acknowledge that there is some community engagement and planning work to do around that shift, and so we'll work with MCPS to understand how best to represent that work in the CIP. And then really what we come down to at this point is the very significant increase in systemic funding that is facilitated by this approach and prioritized in this approach. And the committee's support for this does add nearly $211 million to the key systemic infrastructure projects as outlined on page 5 of your packet. This includes ADA, HVAC, relocatable classrooms, sustainability, improved safe access to schools, fire safety, emergency replacement of major building components, healthy schools, and building modifications and program improvements. Just to conclude briefly, the committee on page 6 of your packet lists the remaining countywide and systemic infrastructure projects, which again the committee's support is for those projects to remain at the level requested by the Board of Education.
Thank you, Ms. McGuire, Mr. Levchenko. That's really well stated and concise. I just want to emphasize again, I've been on this committee on my 6th year, putting $211 million towards these projects, which I hear about every time I go to a school, something on this list is just I think a really, really big step for us to take, and will improve the lives of students in their schools and families for years to come, and just put us in a better scenario, and have the other bonus of when you're in the CIP for a major renovation or for a new school, the likelihood that it stays on track will increase because we're including this. So with that, there's several issues we need to take up. Let's start with the Damascus High School. So Ms. LaGrange, come on down, please. And we've talked about this previously, but we're joined by colleagues, and we want to make sure we have a full airing of this, and we have more technical staff here to talk about the programming side, which we haven't had before, so that we appreciate that. My understanding is that the school system and the school board voted last week to centralize it. Well, they've done this a while ago, has centralized CTE programs at Seneca as the Up County and Thomas Edison. I had the honor of being at the opening of both of those projects. One last council, or they both were last council, but they're amazing buildings, and if you haven't seen them, and have a lot to offer. But we did also say that we want to make sure that you can completely articulate, and we've had discussions about this before, about career and technical education and work-based learning and other aspects, particularly around career and technical education, what the vision is. Our foundation partners, I think I see some here today, have expressed concern about where we're going, right? And we appreciate them being here today and their partnership with industry. So I'll start with a question, and then I'll turn to my colleagues on the committee, and then I'll turn to, I'm assuming everyone probably wants to ask something here. So Damascus High School currently offers automotive, IT, child development, and horticulture, right? Is that correct? Did I get those four? Okay. And technical career and tech programs. What will remain as part of this project? Can you just be clear about that? Thank you. And introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Irina LaGrange. I am the Director of College and Career Readiness and District-wide Programs for Montgomery County. And with this Damascus project, we are really excited at this opportunity to modernize our current CTE programs and to be innovative and reflective not just of student needs and student asks, but also 21st century demands to ensure that our students are leaving with certification that provides them with high wage, high pay, high demand positions. And so with Damascus High School, there were several asks. One ask was for us to think about career and technical education programs, as I've mentioned, that are reflective of student needs. The other was for us to think about flexible space. So we know that there's going to be an increase in enrollment. And so we really wanted to make sure that we were using all of our instructional spaces, that they were flexible and we could use them throughout the day. And then the third ask was also for us to think about the current programs. So you were absolutely correct in the four programs. They also have professional restaurant management, but at that time they don't have a teacher, so those students are not taking advantage of that program. So in looking at the
And that would be also like nickname hospitality program.
Correct. And so what we're looking, so it's also important to keep in mind that the project for Damascus would take quite some time in terms of us recommending programs. And so the optimal word here is recommending, because the process to introduce new programs includes student voice data, parent voice data, includes teacher voice data, and of course community. So we really want to see what are the programs that could be there and what would the students get excited about. So before I share some of the programs we're considering, it's important also to acknowledge that our goal as a district is to make sure that every high school has strong local programs. So right now, as you've mentioned, we have 51 CTE programs. We're really excited about that. But we cannot have 51 CTE programs at all of our 25 high schools. We just can't do that. So the question is, what do the local high schools have? What are they proud of? What are the strong programs so that students can stay at those schools? As you've already mentioned, we do have the Down County Hub for CTE for some of our CTE programs is Edison, and it's an incredible program. So if those of you who have not had a chance to visit recently, we invite you and we'd love to share that with you. Then during the pandemic, we opened up Seneca Valley as our Up County hub, brand new, and we still have room, of course, to build and expand. And we want to make sure that students in the upper county, part of the county have access to the programs there, because we want to make sure that they're not traveling all the way down county and all over the county, because Seneca Valley was designed as the Up County hub. So in terms of the programs, what programs are we looking at currently? At Damascus, we're recommending, again, so the recommended programs, of course, with the automotive program, the recommendation is there's a flexible space, and the recommendation is to think about an innovative program that looks at 21st century emerging auto technologies, that looks at 21st century cars, and what would that look like, and what could our students do to prepare them for those future jobs. Again, we do have the foundations here with us today, and the automotive foundations representatives, and so we look forward to collaborating with them. We know we would have their support in creating those programs that would meet those future needs of our car industry. So currently,
so just to there's been some. So that collaboration is yet to happen.
So we have our supervisor in the program works and meets with the PACs regularly. I work with him. So the conversation is happening through MCPS. It might not be happening in silos, but in terms of us having the PACs partnership where we meet regularly, our supervisor meets regularly with the PACs. And so of course the conversation is happening, but the conversation needs to continue, and the conversation needs to include more stakeholders. So if I could just
Sure, go ahead.
I went a little bit of a long way around, but I think it is important to point out currently with our traditional automotive program, so we have automotive programs currently available at 4 high schools. We have 2 programs total, and both of the programs for automotive technology and collision is available at Thomas Edison High School, and Gaithersburg High School also has 2 programs. Now, Seneca Valley and Damascus have automotive technology, so they have the same program. And so students, for example, who wanted to follow, let's just as an example, who wanted to follow that traditional pathway, they would have access to Seneca Valley High School. Seneca Valley High School offers 5 part-time CTE programs, and there are currently students from Seneca Valley High School taking advantage of those programs. We have MCPS transportation available, and we have students traveling currently to Seneca Valley from Damascus for both AM and PM programs. So they go in the morning, MCPS buses bring them back, or they go in the afternoon. So that traditional program is there and available.
Just before you move on to the next program, on that point, I've heard conflicting information about the capacity of that program. Is there, and I know there's a chicken and egg kind of thing of you mentioned the hospitality program is not because you don't have a teacher. It's not because there's not space for it, but it's because there wasn't a person, a body that could teach it. So what is the capacity? How is Seneca Valley, the automotive program, the traditional program you're describing, at capacity?
So I'm so glad you framed that way. So Seneca Valley, as we shared, is a new program. So currently they only have 1 teacher. So it is at capacity with us having 1 teacher in that program. So in that sense, it's at capacity. If we bring another teacher, and there's plenty of room, it's a beautiful space. We have cars, we have lifts, there's enough of the instructional space that if we were to increase the number of teachers, then we would certainly have more room for that
So
program.
that's obviously an operating budget question.
Correct. Or to move a teacher. I mean, there's plenty.
Or you could move it within the current budget.
Correct.
Do you have plans to do that?
So this is all possible. So again, this is all down the road. These are the conversations. This
Right.
is all on the table. Absolutely possible. So in terms of physical space, is there space? Absolutely, there is space.
Okay.
There's space for that. And then I also, if I could just, I didn't answer one part of
Yeah,
your
go ahead and
question.
finish, yeah.
In terms of the
And then I'll
programs
pass.
that we are looking at based, and I think I shared this, that currently we have over 260 Damascus students whose home school is Damascus, who are actually in other regional and countywide programs. And so that was another question, to look at the data and to see why are so many students going to other schools and not staying at their high school. And so that was the first step. As I shared, this is a long process, and we have plenty of time to engage students and other stakeholders, but we looked at the hard data. So we looked at the data, what programs are students in who are leaving Damascus and not going to their home school. And so based on that data, some of the programs we're considering are, for example, there is a new program we're exploring in engineering. And that program includes AI, it includes robotics, it includes real-world problems where students have an opportunity to collaborate and to use engineering technologies to solve those problems. That's one recommendation, and we're exploring that with University of Maryland College Park. That would lead to certification and college credits. We're looking at healthcare professions. So with healthcare professions, we know that our students could get certification at the end of the program. And the wonderful thing with that is for students who are being economically responsible, and we hear this a lot from our high school students who want to work and at the same time get college credits because they're anxious about taking out loans. Such a certification provides them a perfect opportunity. There's a high need in Montgomery County for healthcare professionals. They could work and go to school. We looked at law, justice, and society. That's another program that's new that we're excited about. It leads into law enforcement jobs. It leads into possible other careers within that field. We also thought about, would there be an opportunity, for example, to create a humanities program so that students didn't have to travel to different parts of the county. And so that's something that the curriculum team would sit down with students, with staff. We would look at what's already available that MSD has approved, and we might consider building new programs. So the bottom line is that all of this is on the table, and we're excited. So this unfortunately has turned out to be a very stressful conversation when it was really meant to be an exciting opportunity. And we still believe, we're confident that we can get the community involved and hear everyone's voice, because I do feel it's important that what Damascus is a large community. It's a community with tremendous tradition and a sense of community, but we want to get everybody at the table, and we really want to hear what are the students interested in and what can we provide for them that will allow them to remain at their school.
Okay. I appreciate that. So I'm going to wrap up and then turn to my colleagues on the committee and then our colleagues who have joined us. So I heard a couple things that I didn't know prior to today, or I wasn't sure about. There is space at Seneca Valley. You just need to add educators. That's on the table. If you wanted to travel, and you would provide that transportation, like is already happening with some students.
Correct.
There are 260 Damascus students that leave Damascus High School for other programs, some of which you mentioned, and you did that analysis, and that's factored into your decision to look at a flexible approach in the new Damascus High School, which, as we've recommended provisionally here, would not begin construction until FY29.
Correct.
Okay, so leaving time to figure all of this out. Assume you've recommitted to improved in cross-sectoral conversation with not only our foundation partners but the entire community in Damascus to trying to figure out what they want to see.
Correct.
You have some ideas, but you're committing to that process.
Correct.
All right, and at some point, as we've requested, before there's a final determination on scope and size, you'll come back to this committee and to the board, obviously, with a more robust plan about what exactly you're going to do.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm going to turn to Councilmember Mink first for questions.
Great, thank you. Appreciate you being here today. Thank you. We're talking a little bit about programming. I'll just name this. Obviously, we're not here to do programming, but it's very relevant to the conversation, obviously. So I appreciate that everybody's being flexible about that. For background, for the millions watching at home, as Chair Jawanda likes to say, there you go. MCPS has 4 nonprofit educational foundations, and they're each kind of divided up by industry. So we're talking about automotive, we're talking about restaurant and hospitality, and there's also construction, and there's information technology, and then these are foundations that bring together business and industry partners with MCPS to provide educational opportunities to students, classroom instruction, lab settings, but also authentic real-world experiences and providing students for the real world once they leave school. And to be clear, set up for students who may go directly into the workforce, but also set up partnering with Montgomery College, with universities at Shady Grove for college track experiences as well. everybody here knows that, but I've learned a lot of late, and so I want to make sure that the folks who are watching have that background as well. The hospitality program. So Damascus has one of three professional grade kitchens. Is that right? In MCPS. So the other two, with the Damascus program being shut down or on pause, coming back with questions about that, the other two are at Edison and Paint Branch. So I just want to note that, because geographically, right, then without Damascus, we don't have this program available up county. Graduates of the program get their certification from the American Culinary Federation, which is very highly regarded. Industry certification requires inspections of the facility, close examinations of the curriculum, all of those things. Really appreciate MCPS and our foundation partners for working to make sure that we were meeting all of those requirements and were able to provide opportunities like that. And I've heard that we have graduates who are frequently graduates of that program who are frequently entering the workforce and making, $70K or more shortly after graduation, which is fantastic. So want to certainly appreciate our foundation partners. I know that David Child is here from Bethesda Marriott. They've been great partners. And thank you to MCPS also for the collaboration. Wanted to clarify what's happening with the hospitality program at Damascus. So was it not running this year because of the lack of a teacher, and we're hopefully going to be starting that back up in future, or what's going on with that?
Thank you so much for bringing that, and I'm so glad that you did acknowledge the foundations. I think it's critical, the partnership that we do have with them. And if I can just backtrack a little bit, for example, our automotive foundations, they have had a history of 40-year long history in Damascus area. They hold our annual used car dealership sale, which is a huge part of the community. And also with our Marriott partnership, of course, continued work with current students, our graduates. I think it's also important to acknowledge that there's a brand new state-of-the-art kitchen that's been put into Montgomery College. So now we're exploring with dual enrollment, where students have access to college classes at no cost to families, how we could also use that state-of-the-art space. It's on their Rockwell campus, so our students would have access to public transportation and to other ways of getting there to that site. So I really appreciate you sharing that. I think it's also important to think about, when we think about our foundations, the very close partnership that we have in also using our Perkins funds to support teachers, to pay for materials for our students. So the partnership, the current partnerships between the foundations and MCPS is deep, and it has a long history. So again, with working together to make sure, and we've had that opportunity as MCPS to provide all the instructional materials for our students, and to make sure that our students have access to not just certification, but all the materials that they need to be successful. So that's really important to acknowledge as well. In terms of the program at the school, the principal made a decision not to offer the program this year because he was not able to find a teacher. We have a couple of students who are going to the program at Seneca Valley. So Seneca Valley has, again, multiple part-time programs. That is the tourism management is one of them. So students are going there. And the idea, my understanding with the new renovation, that there will be a space for that program. And of course, the idea that's never been discussed for that program to be taken off the table. We just have to make sure that there's student interest and that we have the staffing to provide it.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. When you say that it will be in the new building, do you mean the same quality, the kitchen, the whole setup there?
So again, we are, it's down the road. So I know that we've had a conversation with our team to talk about creating flexible spacing. And again, thinking about not just having a couple of hundred, almost 300 students come back to their home school and have that as an option. And I say that again for Damascus because that's a community where the pride and the sense of being a Damascus resident runs deep. So again, having students come back and have the opportunity to go to their home school because they're excited about the programs, but then also adding 600, possibly adding hundreds of additional seats. And with that ask, we have to be cognizant and intentional in creating instructional spaces that that can be used multiple times during the day. So not just during the time when that one teacher's teaching, but can we have access to those spaces for 7 periods during the day? Because what we don't want to do is build a new school and then have to have portables within a year because the students don't fit. So again, the idea that we're looking at right now in thinking about design is and I'm going to let you speak to that a little bit more, but thinking about the flexibility of the space. So I can't right now answer and say the size of that space and what it would look like, but of course our commitment to the program and having it be driven by student interest is there. And again, exploring our other spaces, state-of-the-art, brand-new spaces that are available to us through Montgomery College.
I hear you on that, and I think intentional is the right word, and I think it's important that we also read that to mean intentional about making sure that we are staying true to what the state of Maryland and what the blueprint and what the community has asked of us, which is that these programs are preparing students for the real world. So if we go too far to making these spaces be able to accommodate a bunch of different things, and we lose the ability to ensure that we are preparing these students for the real world and to national industry standards, all of those things, then we've watered them down to where it really wasn't worth making, the partway investment in the first place. So I think it's going to be crucial to, as you have noted, to work directly with those industry partners. I appreciate you referencing an MCPS liaison, but I think it's really important as you're making these decisions. I would think it would be of great value for you to have those industry partners in the room to have a dialogue back and forth about some of these specifications and what pieces are actually needed for each of these programs to be in the building to make sure that we're meeting those standards. What is it possible to take out and what needs to be left in? And I think we're going to pause because I think Councilmember Lukey has to.
Can I just also answer just that question too, that with the blueprint, we also another emphasis is on work-based learning opportunities, and so we are excited with the foundations. We know the Automotive Foundation, the endless partnerships that they have with different dealerships in Montgomery County, again, creating internship opportunities for our students and even apprenticeships with the Marriott industry and the different restaurants. I mean, they have the team has hosted so many different successful events. So again, we talked about Summer Rise before. So really thinking about work-based learning opportunities and that real-world experience that you were sharing about, because a classroom is one thing, but being in a beautiful, brand-new, multi-million-dollar restaurant in a hotel is a completely different experience. So again, thinking about where those Summer Rise opportunities, where the internship opportunities, the apprenticeship opportunities, and that's where the beauty of our partnership and our collaborations with the foundations is so critical, because they do have the resources and they have been most supportive, and we look forward to continuing that and building upon that.
Thank you. So we'll pause. I know Councilmember Lukey has to leave soon, so we're going to turn to her.
Thank you. And first, I just want to thank the committee for your very, very thoughtful work on this and methodically moving through things. And I fully support the committee's approach to getting, more realistic capital improvement budgeting moving forward from MCPS, where things are not front-loaded, but they are done in a more systematic method that's more accurate for the community and for us in doing the work that we need to do in order to make sure there's capacity. And the goal of avoiding repeated delays and deferrals. And I appreciate that neither of the non-recommended scenarios needs to be adopted in its entirety, and that's why we're here. That's why I think Councilmember Balcom is here. We're in a unique situation where there's a project, the Damascus project, and I was curious that you said the down the road, because actually there was $5 million in the FY25 budget for this project, and the planning and design stuff had been happening in those community conversations before I even got on the council. So it doesn't really feel down the road, right? Especially not to that community. That's a concern. And back when I first started and we went to a PTA meeting and Seth Adams was there with us, the big concern that the community had, as you noted, they have a lot of pride in the school. And since it was built in 1950 and hasn't had a renovation since before most of us sitting up here were born, folks have had their grandparents and their parents all graduate on that same football field. And the big issue was, will we be able to have graduation on the football field while the renovations are happening, right? So it's not that issues don't come up. The automotive program issue just came up in December. And the community was caught off guard about that. And I certainly appreciate the forward thinking about how we may be doing this as we move into new technologies and newer ways of doing things. But right now we've got capacity issues at both Damascus and Clarksburg high schools. And with respect to the program at Seneca, which you mentioned, there's one teacher, and that's at capacity because there's one teacher, but the Damascus program has about 80 kids in it, enrolled for the next school year, according to the school. So I'm just going to leave that there, but that's a lot of students to be uprooting and saying you may not be able to do your thing next year. I'm glad to hear that there's transportation that can be provided, because that's not always the case. We have a lot of programs, including the aerospace program at Magruder, where kids apply and they're all excited because this is a great offering, and then they find out, oh wait, there's no transportation for me to get there. And unless you have a parent who can take you, sometimes a 45-minute drive, you're not going to be able to get there. So those are really important things as we think about how to, you're right, we can't have every program at every school, but how can we be more methodical about that? And I do appreciate that you referenced the dual enrollment issue and the increasing popularity of that, right? That is important so that students who can maximize obtaining college credits while they're in high school won't have as many loans or won't have as many financial obligations later. But I note that we are second to last in the state of Maryland in our dual enrollment rates. Second to last. The only school system with lower dual enrollment than us is Baltimore City. Our neighboring counties, Frederick County and Howard County, Frederick County's rate is approaching 20%, and Howard County's is approaching 15%. And so I applaud the aspirational goal, but we're kind of way behind on that trend, and we need to do better. And so my big concern is that this has been promised to this community for a very long time, and it's not a situation where we're talking about getting started with the planning. Plans have already been provided to the community. And construction was set to begin in the fiscal year beginning on July 1st. So I would love to hear why you're taking the position you are.
So I'm going to thank you. I wrote down three questions that I'm going to answer. And so I think what's also important that they're my colleagues here. And so the work, the way it happens in phases. And so the programs that I was speaking to, that comes later because once we have the flexible spacing, then we have time to build a program. So we're not, what they're doing takes much longer. It's a much bigger lift. The building programs is the exciting part. And so we do have time for that, and it's not as urgent. What I also wanted to share, I think it's really important when you mentioned the aviation program. So I think one thing, the conversation that we've been having as a district is thinking about the programs that we've had. So some of our career and technical education programs have been around for a long time, and others, such as that one, are pretty new. So I think one thing that we're going to have to do, and it's going to be a difficult conversation, is to think about what does the data within our programs say about student interest, and is it of time to continue some programs and multiply them at other schools so that transportation is not an issue and so that more children have access to them. The programs that have waiting lists, should we be allowing those programs or engaging students at other schools to have access to them? And then if there are some programs maybe where there isn't an interest anymore, is it time to sunset those programs? And those are difficult conversations because tradition comes in. We've had those programs for a long time, but I do think it's time that we have those difficult conversations to think about what are our children saying, what are they interested in, and how can we make it happen. And then the last thing that I did want to just share, so with our dual enrollment, you are correct in saying that, for example, Frederick County, their enrollment is much higher. Frederick County is able to use their own local high school teachers to teach college level courses. And so that's one thing that we have not been able to do. So our students, and we've had a great partnership with Montgomery College, our students either travel to Montgomery College to take classes or they now do them online. And so, again, we are always looking at exploring different options and increasing the capacity, because one thing that we are finding is that, and I've shared this with you before, is that the transportation is difficult in this district. We're a really large district, and so we have created, as part of the blueprint, central stops, which allow our students to travel to Montgomery College with central MCPS transportation. Montgomery College has created multiple classes online, so our students can access them from school or from home, and we appreciate that. And we do look forward to increasing the number of courses our students can take, because the feedback has been incredibly positive, and we want to make sure that more of our students can not just leave with more credits, but maybe even with associate's degrees, because that will tremendously impact their pathway and their opportunity then to transition to other institutions within the district. And then I wanted you to also have a chance.
So I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. So you are correct, in the midst of design. And what
Just
we
pull
do
your mic down.
no, I'm sorry. Especially with a high school where there are very large spaces, what we do is, when we start that design process, is that we build big boxes. We show big boxes. So we can fit multiple different kinds of programs in those spaces. We designate the space, and once we collaborate and work and decisions are made, then we go back into those spaces and say, okay, this is the requirements within those spaces. So we can start and continue our design process where no final decisions have been made for the majority of those CTE or specialty spaces. The other thing I also just wanted to clarify, we are in the midst of design. We have been designing. We've been out to the community. I've been out to the community numerous times. For next year, those students that are in the program will be at that program. We are not starting construction next year. So there is still ample time to, let these students know that there may be a transition if they want to continue the program and go to Seneca Valley, but that will not happen next year. They will be where they are for next year. There is no construction starting come this summer.
Well, 2 points, and thank you for raising the issue about not having the teachers in the schools who are able to teach the college certified classes, right? Again, we're the only school system in the state that has 0 of those. 0. I'm looking at the state's 2022 annual dual enrollment report, and that's based on MCPS's data. The data that gets into that report comes from each individual school system. And I'm looking at the chart, and there's big 0 for Montgomery County.
Is it a 0 for number of teachers?
No, it's a 0 for courses with dual enrollment flag being taught by the school system. And there are over 10,000 courses offered statewide that do have that, right? So we have 0. I think the next lowest district was Kent County, which only has 1 high school, and they have 44 classes that fit that flag. So my concern, again, is that we not delay the construction, because every time we delay, we're compounding problems for 2 different school clusters in 2 different regions. And it's not like, again, you're talking about the very northern end of the county where there's nowhere else to go that's nearby for Clarksburg and for Damascus. And I think it was incredibly telling that we had so many people from Clarksburg High School come to support Damascus in the public hearings on the CIP because of the issue and because of the double impacted effect on those 2 communities. So I appreciate the ongoing conversation and creativity that we can apply for the automotive tech program and other programs, and ways that we can be more flexible moving forward in meeting those needs and finding ways to improve upon things we already have. But I don't want the operational logistical issues to get in the way or cloud the discussion on the construction and renovation issue. Again, as I said, this building's approaching its 75th birthday. So with that, I yield.
Thank you, Councilmember Lukey. I'm going to yield to Councilmember Balcom, and then we'll come back to the committee after that.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And thanks to Councilmember Ludke. We share a boundary, and very often one bleeds right into the other, and this is one of those situations. Some of my constituents attend Damascus, and the expectation is that with an expanded school, more will. So that's why I'm here. Aside from supporting my neighbor. So I'm getting mixed signals in terms of, in one sense, the decisions don't need to be made now, and there's an ongoing discussion about what's going to happen in the schools, but then also the decision is going to be made now as to whether the automotive program goes into that school. So there's a mixed message. So just to clarify, the MCPS is proposing to not go forward with the automotive program, the traditional automotive program right now.
Our recommendation at this time is to be innovative and to think about a program that we could use that would be reflective of 21st century needs. The discussion we're having.
So just to clarify, so you're saying that the traditional automotive program that's currently at Damascus will not be there?
So it's a discussion because the current program, the current traditional program, has a very large footprint. And so I think the decision has to be made. If we are to go with a traditional program, it's going to take up space from other instructional spaces. It will impact the side road. It will have tremendous impact. So if the decision's made to go with a traditional program, that can be done. We just all have to be cognizant and aware of how that's going to impact the rest of the building. And we also just have to be mindful, my understanding, and I can defer to my colleague, that instructional space would cost $12 million. And so the question is, as a district, are we going to invest $12 million into a traditional space that currently serves 57 students? And if the decision is that that is what we're willing to do, then that is something that we can build. And then the other decision is to create a large flexible space that we're together with our foundations partners in the automotive industry, we can build something that's exciting, that's forward thinking, that will still give our students access to certification, and that will lead to those high paying jobs, because we know with electric cars there's a tremendous need. And then students who want to do the traditional program have access to it 8 miles away, and the program is beautiful.
And Councilmember Bauckham, just to add, just so to your point, the Board of Education voted last week to do what you just said, to not have the traditional automotive program. Now, they could change their mind. It's obviously in their purview to decide the programming. We approved the CIP. I just wanted to make it be clear that that was the board's decision. So to the extent that MCPS staff is operating, they're operating based on the board's decision, which could be revisited, of course.
Okay, thank you. So thank you. I just was getting mixed signals about the decision. So I am here to support having the traditional program. The program is very important to the school. There's a difference between the numbers of students, whether it's 80 or 57 students. The assumption is there will be more students at Damascus, so that program might increase. Neither here nor there. But once the decision's made, it would be very costly to go back and change that decision once the building is built. And I understand that we can't have all 51 CTE programs in every high school, but we have this program in this high school right now, and I just think that it's not prudent and not forward-thinking to reduce a successful program. From the workforce development perspective, we should be adding more CTE programs to more high schools, not taking them away. Feel strongly about that. We have a successful program with a long legacy. You mentioned 40-year legacy in this community, and that just doesn't make sense. In terms of Seneca Valley, it's interesting, there's no guarantee that an additional teacher will come, given the fact that we have a hospitality program that we can't fill because we don't have a teacher. So saying that the students can move to Seneca Valley and that a teacher will appear, we know that there's no guarantee of that. So I just think that we need to talk about that. I do have a question and not just rambling. So the other, I want to stick to workforce development for one more second. In developing a meaningful curriculum, we desperately need employers to share their very specific needs with us in order to make a curriculum to educate and train the workforce of tomorrow. And one of the biggest obstacles with that is connecting industry with our educational institutions. And in this case, we have industry at the table, and they are saying that they want and need the traditional program. I've had those conversations with them. And while you're saying that you want to be innovative and create innovative programs for tomorrow, our current employers, the people who are employing the students, are saying that the traditional program is a better program. So I think that we ask our employers to come and tell us what they want. They're telling us what they want, and we need to listen. So I think that's important. I was intrigued by you saying how many students leave Damascus. So on average, how many students at other high schools leave their high school to go to other programs?
I would have to get back to you with that specific data. We have 25 high schools, so I can't speak to it off the top of my head right now, but that's something we can certainly share
because
when we come back. But I
think that's an important point. So if you're using that data point, if you're using the data to make a point, I think we need to know how that fits with other schools. So for instance, if an average of 250 students leave their school every day to go to another program, then Damascus is on par with that. If, however, Damascus has an inordinate number of people leaving, that is a much bigger issue. That's a much bigger problem that we need to look at. And geography matters. I know that's not a surprise to my colleagues when I say that. So it's 9.5 miles. I know it's a mile and a half difference between, our view on that, but it is 9.5 miles from Damascus to Damascus High School to Seneca Valley High School. But it's 9.5 miles with one feasible road that is very often bumper-to-bumper traffic. And so I feel like it's cavalier to say this other school is 8 miles down the road when it could be, I just Googled it before I came here, and in the middle of the day it's 20 minutes. At the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, it's much longer than that. So I think it's important to accept that if the students don't have access, then it's an additional burden for students who have been doing this program for 40 years. So those are my points. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate all of your feedback. Just to make 3 quick points. So
if you could do so concisely, please. Yeah.
So we do, as I wanted to just reiterate, we do have students who are currently from Damascus going to Seneca Valley every day, every morning, and every afternoon, and we were not made aware of any issues so far with transportation, but I do appreciate you sharing about the traffic. You are more familiar with the area, so thank you for that feedback. In terms of the number of students leaving, when we looked at the data, and again, I cannot speak to it from memory, when we looked at all 25 high schools and the number of students leaving to go to other programs, Damascus was the significant outlier. And again, this is the reason that we think it's exciting to have an opportunity to modernize some of their programs. And then the last thing, in terms of the current program at Damascus High School, in their level 1 class, they have 34 students, and then level 2 is at 17, and level 3 is at 6 students. So that means that next year, hopefully all 34 students from level 1 would create to level 2, and then again, the program would continue, but as my colleagues shared, it would not be impacted because the construction does not begin next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I really appreciate, as I always do, Councilmember Balcom's advocacy and question. there's a core issue here, and I'm going to turn back to Councilmember Mink. I said this at the beginning, and I want you to answer it, and then I'll turn it to Councilmember Mink. If industry's saying this is what leads to jobs, and you're saying we want to be innovative and this leads to jobs, there's those things can't coexist, right? So because you're not industry,
Correct.
so unless you're saying they're like, unless you're saying they're old gas industry,
No.
like, I don't think you're making that claim, because I know some of them. I know where they work. I know where they place students. They're not, so could you just square
Absolutely.
that round peg for me?
Absolutely. So by no means would I pretend to be an expert in our automotive industries. What we were sharing as a district, though, we have to make some difficult decisions in terms of being fiscally responsible. So the question, again, as a district, we have the traditional program available at Thomas Edison. It's available for the Down County students. We have the traditional programs available at Gaithersburg High School.
Got it.
And we have the traditional program available in a brand new, beautiful Seneca Valley High
Okay.
School. So the question is, it's not a matter of do we know better, but the question is, are we then going to build a fourth traditional
Got it.
site? And that's the
Perfect.
question.
Well, I just think you should have answered it that way from the beginning, because you didn't. And that's a valid view. Like if you're saying, hey, there's 57, you kind of danced around it. There's 57 students or 80, whatever it is. It's not worth the money in our view, based on we have all these students going other places for other programs. So we want to have it be more flexible. They can go to Seneca. Like, if that's your view, fine. But I just felt like we didn't get that as an answer, so you're saying, yes, there's jobs in the industry in the current program, but you're saying those can be met by sending students to other places if they want to do that. Is that a fair characterization? Okay. Councilmember Mink.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And to the point about why we're continuing to have this conversation, aware of the board having weighed in on some of this as well, certainly, and respect their opinions and their roles, of course. They're also responsive to the information and the requests that MCPS brings to them. And so, as with MCPS before us, I think as part of our due diligence, continuing to dig into that information is an important part of the process. So I appreciate the indulgence there. So to the point that students at Damascus could go to Seneca Valley, how many car lifts are there at Seneca Valley?
I'll have to double check. I was there just yesterday. Multiple car lifts. I want to say 6, but I'll have to double check.
Okay.
I was there just yesterday.
Okay, great. Let's say 6. I think 6 is accurate. And how many are there at Damascus?
I can't speak to that off the top of my head.
Okay. I believe it's 7. So let's say 6 and 7. So Damascus has more car lifts than Seneca Valley. Damascus has 64 students enrolled this year with a wait list. I think that the numbers flux a little bit through the year, so what number do we want to use?
So currently we have, according to our database, we have 57 students.
Okay, let's say 57. So 57 students enrolled currently, and they had a wait list also at the start of the year, and that's across 3 double period classes. So 6 traditional single class periods for math purposes. Seneca Valley, I believe, has 51 students. Does that sound right? Yeah. What are we at now?
44.
44, okay. And what do we say for Damascus as 57? Okay. Across their 3 double period classes or 6 single class periods. So that's not 101, did I do that right? 101 students then, with the 2 schools who have elected to be in these programs, not including the waitlisted students for Damascus, using cumulatively 13 car lifts. So if all of those students were to be accommodated with Seneca Valley's facilities, we would need about 12 class periods. Which, now, can you explain how this would work, that we would accommodate that number?
So there is, with scheduling, with master scheduling, there's an opportunity. Again, the students have instructional classroom time, and they have time when they're working in the shop. For example, yesterday when we did the visit, the students were in the classroom. No one was using the part of the shop. And so there would be an opportunity for teachers to be innovative, as many of our teachers in other subjects share the instructional space and they share the labs. And so with two teachers, they would be able to design a program that allows for students to work on cars and to use that instructional space, because the students they wouldn't be spread out necessarily throughout the whole space, but there is an opportunity for them to collaborate and to have some students in the instructional space while others are in the lab. And the lab, I believe, is large enough to accommodate a significant number of students.
So the premise is that the program, although the current facilities at Seneca Valley would not accommodate the current program as it is with the number of students, and I believe there's now more than 80 students who have signed up hoping to take for the automotive program at Damascus for the coming school year, which I think also says something, that we could design a program that would use less student time at those bays, essentially. Is that right?
It would be that they would have access to the same program at Seneca Valley, and the teachers would collaborate to make sure that students have the adequate amount of time, both hands-on learning and then learning the theory.
Okay. So if we modify the curriculum at Damascus, right, in order to, right, you're talking about doing something innovative, updating the curriculum, and having their kids do their hands-on work using the car lifts at Seneca Valley, right? Am I putting these pieces together, right? Okay. So I want to make sure that the program, whatever the program is there, that is going to be up to industry standards from day one, right? So MSDE has approved certain automotive programs of study that are in alignment with national industry standards, that are extremely specific, like down to what specific tools are being used. So very, very specific about what this curriculum should look like and what should be included, and what facilities need to be available to the students. And so that is a big part of what concerns me about this discussion, that like we're just going to come up with another program, because the programs exist. There are certain programs that are, again, approved by MSDE. This is one of them. We have it already set up, and we have all of the tools for it and the facilities for it at Damascus. And I think it's a little nerve-wracking to think about eliminating the possibility for continuing that program, which has been so successful and which is in alignment, without having a plan, a curriculum, a program that already in place that we know is going to meet those same standards.
Thank you. So just to clarify, the program and the curriculum would not change. It would be the same program, same curriculum. We would not be changing that. We would just co-locate the two schools. So as an example, right now at Gaithersburg High School, we have two programs running at the same time with 111 students. So the school has been able to make it work, same standard, same curriculum, same certification. At Thomas Edison, we have 190 students taking part of those two programs. Again, same high standard, industry recognized credentials. And so we have already two schools that are serving larger groups of students and are offering both programs, whereas Seneca Valley would only be offering one of the programs. So we do believe that we can be able to maintain the quality and the curriculum and the high standards at that one site.
Okay. Two quick things. Second to last thing is that I think that before we move forward with approving plans for a facility that is going to eliminate the possibility for things like the car lifts, which are being used as part of this curriculum right now, I think it's important that we get confirmation from industry that it is possible to put together a program which meets these same standards without those facilities there, and without, and I know that there's some of those facilities at Seneca Valley, I hear you, but in terms of the number of students that can be accommodated while still reaching those levels. So it would be great if, we could hear about some of your conversations directly with industry and just get some reassurance that we're going to be able to continue providing this level of programming in the facility that is being proposed. And I'll note also that there is a property for sale basically across the street from Damascus High School called Damascus Motors. It is for sale for $4.3 million, so a far cry from $12 million, and there are industry partners right here who have said that they would be interested if MCPS was to purchase that property in discussing the possibility of a public-private partnership, which would have them, updating and maintaining that facility, and then MCPS being able to use it for their programming. So that provides a very unique and tidy solution. Obviously, lots of due diligence would need to be done, but if your conversations with industry come back with that you need space like that, then this looks like potentially a much more affordable option. And obviously, industry would have their own natural incentive to ensure that every single year those facilities and the tools, and just like with the curriculum, are up to date to meet those national certification standards. Thank you.
Thank you. Turn to Councilmember Albernas.
Thank you. Lots been said. Hello, Ms. LaGrange. It's great seeing you again. And I still am so impressed and appreciative of the role that you and your team play in helping to connect our students with real life and meaningful and gainful employment opportunities. This is, I think, one of the great things I love about this job is you learn so much new every day about different programs and initiatives. I was generally familiar with the automotive program, but have become much more familiar with it after this. Had my car serviced last week, and I will never take that for granted again, I assure you. But I don't have very much to add. I appreciate and respect the passion from which my colleagues are coming from, which is really voicing the community's voices that we heard both through the public testimony process and in lots of individual conversations, both with constituents who've benefited from this program and are now gainfully employed as a result of it. We've also heard from current and former instructors, and as you've heard, industry here has been such a wonderful partner, and this represents such a unique opportunity for us to think even more outside the box than we have been. And I would say we have been innovative. But I would just stress what Councilmember Mink just said, which is that, we shouldn't be limited to, what's immediately in front of us. And if there are opportunities with industry this willing to come to the table, let's leverage that, take advantage of it, meet part of the way. And that goes beyond just the board or your ability. You've got a partner here on the council, as you've heard, who's very interested in working collaboratively to see what's possible here. Because I do think we can grow this in a way that's responsible, and that can be truly a model, not just for the state, but for our entire area. So I look forward to the ongoing conversations. We will work with you and see what we can do to get you support that you need from this body. Thank you.
Appreciate both of those points in all the conversation. We also have a partner in the state, right? We mentioned there's senators that wrote in about this. I know they're active and want to make sure that something can be resolved here. Obviously, it's the board and MCPS's job to determine the programming. We don't do that, but we do have an interest in, obviously, the overall budget and the CIP and what's built to support the programming. So there's a nexus, of course. And so I think what you're hearing is, and I've heard from you today, a commitment to kind of doubling down on this engagement with industry and the community to explore what might be possible to maintain a program that, again, has people on the wait list for next year where kids are using it, and address the multiple issues that we have to do, like these students that are going to other schools and the other programs and all the things that you're trying to manage. So, we'll come back to this in a little, probably in a cursory way in the operating budget, but also after the budget. The proposal that is before us today would, where you've had planning dollars, there would be small planning dollars, I think $3 million or so in each 25 and 26 is $3 million plus, but this would move the construction dollars until 29 is the current proposal.
As part of the non-recommended reduction.
Yeah, as part.
Correct.
Yeah, I know you don't want that, but that's what we're operating under right now. So good news, bad news is that you do have time but use those planning dollars, use that time to And if we have to modify the CIP next year in the off year, because you've come to some great agreement, which I would love to have happen with industry, and you say we're going to buy that property, we're going to do this, or here's what we're going to do, and the board says, comes to an agreement about what they want to do and wants to come back to us and make another request, we would consider that. I think you're hearing that from, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 members of the council today, and so that's what I would ask that you all work to do over this next year. So, anything else on this point?
Are we going to come back?
Say it again.
Are we going to come back and have this conversation?
A
quick update about the conversation.
Well, let me ask you this: how much time would you need to come back? Could you have initial conversations with industry between now and the passing of the budget in May? Okay, so what I would ask you to do is you can do it in writing. You can come back, or we can tack it on to another committee. Let's do it in writing. That's what staff would prefer. So let's do it in writing to the committee and to the council about a little more in depth after you've gone back and talked about hearing what you've heard today and over the last several months about some potential plans and direction. And so that we can have that, the council can have that into consideration leading into the final passage of the budget. Yes, Ms. McGuire.
I did just want to confirm, as you said, Mr. Jawando, the Damascus High School planning has about $3.5 million in each of FY25 and 26, and as you said, that does provide some additional planning time to look at some of these specific facility options if necessary.
Great. Councilor Make, you have a quick final point? Sure.
I wanted to make a request. I think that it will go a long way with the community. Obviously, you're not going to have any kind of deal set or long-term plan. This is going to be an ongoing process, and I appreciate that. Not just through budget, but through the next year and so on. But I do think that it would go a very long way with the community to be able to have a conversation. Apologies to council staff, but be able to have even a quick conversation with industry at the table to just say, kind of, here's the start of the beginnings of our conversations. Maybe there's not a lot settled there, but to show the public and to show the community that we're in a good place and we feel good about the direction this would go. I just think that might be important at this point.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't think it'd be appropriate to do that before the board did it. And so if the board is going to, I see we have a board member here. See, I wouldn't presume that board member Harris would speak for the entire board, but if they were to have that conversation prior to budget, and I'm certainly willing to entertain, as part of the operating budget discussion, tacking on when we get to CTE, for example, tacking on a quick conversation, an update on what you all have discussed, but I think it would be more appropriate for that to go there first, just by our roles. But still would love for you to submit in writing at a minimum to us. So I know that's not exactly what you asked for, Councilmember Mink, but hopefully it's halfway there.
Would it be possible we have a couple of our foundation representatives in the audience. I know that we're limited on time, but would it be okay for us to just get a quick verbal from them that they are ready and prepared to come to the table and sit down with MCPS to have some of those conversations? Can we give them a quick 30 seconds?
Sure.
That would be great. David, you want to come? David Child and Harold Redden?
Hey, it's 30 seconds, David. So. Exactly. That's what I was worried about. Yes. The button to the far right. There you go.
Well, thank you. Yes, my name's David Child. I chair the Foundation of Hospitality and Restaurant Management and have done so for approximately 4 years now. And quite honestly, for 4 years we've been asking for various items to be included in the budget and have had various, stating that they will do so. And, around the table meetings where they've said, yes, we're going to make it happen. Yes, we're going to have these things in the budget. And then we come to find out they're not. We have two situations right now. One is Damascus, and the other one, quite frankly, happened in Watkins Mill, where we suddenly found out at the last minute that they were changing directions for a hospitality classroom there and not including any equipment that you would be required for a cooking class, if you will. And fortunately, we were able to jump in at the last moment, turn that direction around and turn it into a dual classroom slash cooking facility, if you will. And so, you know, I've heard the word partnership many, many times, and I'm concerned that Montgomery County Public Schools does not really consider our partnership as strong. They think it's strong, but I'm concerned of their support is weakening the partnerships with the foundations. We have an instructional specialist for the Hospitality Foundation that has never been filled, and that now relies on all of the industry professionals to spend considerable amounts of their time doing the duties of that position. And the IT Foundation instructional specialist was cut from the budget, and quote, because the person that was in the position that retired, and so it was easy to be able to cut that without having to make a difficult cut elsewhere.
Okay.
So
Well, we appreciate your concerns. Hopefully you've heard this. I know you've heard this conversation because you've been sitting right there. MCPS has said that we're going to get back to the table here, restart partnership negotiations. Certainly, I know you'll communicate with us directly about how that's going.
So perhaps a letter that came from both the foundations and MCPS, signed by all of us, would show full agreement.
Would love to see that.
As opposed to one coming from MCPS that we've never seen, which sounds like that's what happens in the past.
I think that's a fair suggestion. So
Would MCPS be willing?
it sounds. I saw a nod.
So I cannot speak to MCPS, but I am certain that we will be able to provide you with an answer.
Okay. Thank you. You gave me overtime, and it's
Thank you.
March Madness. I gave you overtime. All right, here we go.
Hi, Will. And folks, I'm Harold Redden. I'm the president of the Automotive Trades Foundation. I've been serving that foundation since the mid-1990s, so I've been around a little bit. And this is very important education. It's not obsolete. We have built into the way that we get industry certifications, which require correct curriculum to the state of the industry. And we have an ecosystem that's built around our graduates having a pathway to a living wage auto technician job in the Montgomery County. We partner with the college. We have articulation with Montgomery College. We have a private program that's headed up by our trade association that allows the students that may not have the ability to just stop for 2 years and take a trade approach to it to work and receive income at a dealership while they're learning at Montgomery College to get their industry certification. So this ecosystem is built around these 4 programs in the county. Our enrollment is increasing, I believe, at every school. And the other thing that wasn't really discussed too much is there are some boundary changes that are anticipated for these schools, which will juggle around the enrollments a little bit and probably the demand. But the other thing that happens, and I hear from students from time to time, is they just don't have enough space in their schedule to sacrifice a period to go to another school, because it takes about a period of travel time, which means they may not be able to be on track for graduation. So that's a real important thing that we talk to our students about. So anyway, I support everything that David has said. The foundation presidents, and we have 4 of them, as has been mentioned, we work together, and we work with the at the superintendent level and the people that the superintendent assigns for us to work with. And I honestly have to tell you that with these quarterly meetings that we have, my first knowledge of the Damascus changes occurred in December, but it was not communicated through the people that we work with at MCPS. So I was just as surprised, and I found out from one of our service managers who was a graduate of the Damascus program, who was just devastated that this program was going away. And my first contact was in a community meeting that might have been even attended by some council members back in January.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I think we've acknowledged the need for better and more communication. Right. I think you've heard that commitment. Go ahead.
So we are ready, willing, able, and want to work with MCPS. We've, in addition to the things that David has said, We also question why we are not assisted to be put into alignment to qualify for the blueprint funding. And we really feel that our blueprint, the blueprint is probably designed for our kinds of programs. And we're just totally excluded from it. So we want that conversation on the table as well, because that's for the good of the students.
Understood. We always like multiple funding streams.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think we've had a fulsome discussion here. We're going to move. We have 2 other items, and folks were patiently waiting. So the action of the committee, is Ms.
So
McGuire, do you want to restate it? Or your understanding of where we are? Would you like me to do that?
I think I can.
Okay.
So on Damascus High School, certainly the clear request is for additional information to come back from MCPS in conjunction with the industry partners and the foundation partners around the future steps and plans for addressing this specific program on the automotive services, as well as the other career pathways in the Up-County, to have that information come back mid-May before final council action, which, just to be clear, probably we need to put that at the beginning of May.
Yeah, I think beginning of May.
Because council action will be mid-May, as I'm thinking out loud here. So I can work with them on specific
And
dates.
sooner if you have it, but no later than
No later than the beginning of May. I'll follow up with them specifically on that. And acknowledging that the planning funds that are remaining under non-recommended scenario A certainly provide for planning of the scope of the building, that what the board has requested, but with the understanding that, again, we'll continue to have this information regarding future career pathway options.
Yep. And you heard a commitment here that the board and MCPS and partners come with a different solution, we're open to entertaining an amendment to the CIP to accommodate that solution. Obviously, it all has to fit in together. So, okay. So, without objection, yes.
On that piece, I wanted to be clear that the committee is voting on the Damascus aspect or all of the recommendations.
I think we can probably put it all together, but
Just wanted to be clear.
yeah, with the entire, unless you have we did not. There was some, so let's just vote on Damascus without objection. There was some discussion about Woodward's, the auditorium issue with Woodward. Are you able to speak to that briefly? Yeah.
Sure.
So our partners for Damascus, you can step backwards, switching gears here, but thank you very much for coming and participating. Thank you, Councilmember Bowden.
So I'll talk quickly.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Let's yes.
So
The issue here being that they're not going to have, the phase 2 will no longer include the auditorium space, and what that will mean for, thank you, Ms. LaGrange, you can leave as well, what that will mean for theater students, people, things that happen in the auditorium,
Correct.
both educational and otherwise.
So again, fiscal constraints have, based upon the bids that we received for both Woodward and looking at Crown, so both the 2 high schools together, it is, the board actually acted on Tuesday to amend the scope of both of those projects so that there would be a phase 3 construction for Woodward High School for the reopening of Woodward High School to include the auditorium, and there would be a phase 2 for the new Crown High School to include the auditorium. So both of those would be built initially without the auditoriums, and then looking at the next full CIP, looking at how to accommodate those in the next phases of construction. As far as program space at Woodward, I'll talk Woodward because Northwood is going to Woodward first. So there are spaces. Northwood does have a performing arts component to their school. And so as part of the first phase of construction for Woodward, we did include specialty spaces for them, including a black box theater that could accommodate some of that performance arts component. Clearly, if they are putting on, and I think Mr. Adams discussed this during the board meeting, that we will work with adjacent schools, the same way we have to do it for Northwood for their athletic facilities and their that program, because the fields will not be available to them in the beginning when they first are at that school. So we are working with our transportation folks, our athletic folks, our, across the board to make sure that we can accommodate it on a day-to-day basis, that they should be accommodated in Woodward with those spaces that we provided as phase 1. But if you're talking about a performance, spring play, things like that, we will be working with adjacent schools to make sure they can be accommodated there as well.
Thank you. Do you have a question you want to ask on that?
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you looking for creative solutions. Obviously, it's $22 million. We're looking for space. I understand the reasoning. My concern here, of course, is that, as you mentioned, this is a Performing Arts Academy program that students chose, and that they were initially told that there would be 1 year at Woodward without an auditorium. And so now the prospect of they've decided where to go and what to do because of their passion for the arts, and they're facing a very different scenario here. So I would, and just acknowledging that, the decision was made prior to knowing, and I understand budget constraints and we're having to be creative here. But I just want to flag this one. If there's like to ask MCPS if there's creative ways to limit the delay, to move up that third phase as much as is possible, to limit the delay of that Woodward Auditorium, to have that on the list as we go into reconciliation of kind of priority issues that we take a look at and see if there is a possible solution there. And then in addition to some of the partnerships and other creative solutions that you mentioned in the black box and so on, it would be great to just kind of get a detailed rundown of what that could look like for students so that families can have a better understanding. Thanks.
I do just want to clarify, I believe I heard you, Mrs. Mink, or Councilmember Mink, reference reconciliation. The auditorium funding, my understanding, is not in the request, and so we wouldn't, it is not necessarily on the table for reconciliation. I think what might be, to your point, would be whether, as was indicated in a future CIP cycle, it could be reintroduced. I think that would be the timing of when those kinds of decisions might be made.
Yeah, I understand that it's not, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that this is one that I would like to lift up as a priority issue for if there's a way to fit it in somewhere so that we have the option.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
the council can't add funds that haven't been requested by the board.
Yeah, so passing the conversation back to MCPS as you have conversations with the board as we're moving forward, as you continue to look at the puzzle that we have before us, flagging this one as one that we are being I'm sure you're being inundated too, but that we are certainly being inundated about since, again, students opted in thinking one thing, having another experience. And so a combination of one, the ask being if you're able to keep looking at that as you work on this puzzle, that would be much appreciated. And or I think regardless, the options that you talked about that you were sorting through, getting those to us and getting those out to families as clearly as possible so that students and families can really anticipate and envision what their arts experience is going to look like with those delays. Thanks.
All right. Good thing we have our board member here to take all this stuff back. Given the robust conversation, the proposal is to move forward with the items that were summarized an hour and a half ago now, I think, and send that to the full council for consideration. Is without objection? Okay. All right. So thank you to our MCPS OMB partners, to staff. Now we will move to our second item, which is the CIP discussion around the Wheaton Arts and Cultural Center. I think this will go faster, and then we'll invite folks to come down for that. Mr. Asant and Mr. Krupe from staff, and so really appreciate this is exciting project, and Wheaton's I think my all-time highlight for my kids being on the council will be when the Wheaton Rec and Library opened, and there were hundreds of people standing out there, and we got to bring our kids to, and be there and for the ribbon cutting. It's just one of the many great things going on in Wheaton. So this project will do a number of things: establish an accessible and connected arts center in Wheaton, and it also has affordable housing in it. Last year, we amended the CIP to allow Department of General Services to conduct a site evaluation for co-locating the mixed-use development, and we approved the supplemental appropriation to allow MHP and the county to apply for a LIHTC housing credit or project. Very pleased with the progress. We've talked about this before. There's an upcoming, I think, town hall on this, and the timeline sounds good, and we're talking about building a 40,000 square feet arts center along with 320 multifamily units, 39 townhomes, 15,000 square feet of office space, and just really wanted to lift up also Ms. Jenkins from the Arts and Humanity Council talked about this point about the importance of an art incubator space as part of this, and so we're really hopeful that can be utilized. But with that, Mr. Krupe, if you want to go over the amounts and what the CE proposed and anything I missed.
The county executive recommended a 38.3 6-year total CIP for the project. There would be a significant upfront appropriation of $23.65 million in fiscal year 25. The proposed project in the CIE's recommendation basically maintains the same expenditure schedule as was approved in the previous CIP, the only difference being that the amount previously listed beyond 6 years has been put in fiscal years 29 and 30 and divided evenly between them.
Thank you. And we also got a letter from our colleague, Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez, District Councilmember, earlier today asking that this be kept on track, and we agree. Mr. Asen, anything to add?
Just one short item, and appreciate the coverage, Councilmember Giwando.
You're welcome.
It's an exciting project. Just one thing to add, as you know, this is a mixed-use project, and we do have a development partner who is actively pursuing their financing, and of course this CIP is a big part of that. In the meantime, and you noted this, the county has brought on an arts consultant to conduct some visioning sessions with the local arts community. Those sessions will begin in May. So as our partner is working through their final design issues and financing issues, we'll be doing some public and outward facing and outreach to the arts community. Susan Jenkins is part of that process, but we'll have an outside consultant in to do a lot of that work into the spring and probably into the summer as well. So that's something to look forward to. We hope to get a lot of input on how the final product will be developed, but for right now we're focused on a multitude of avenues to get the project underway.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I think everyone's excited about this. Anything from colleagues? So without objection, we'll concur with the county executive's request and move this forward to full council. Thank you both. All right, we are now on to our third item. Thank you for your patience. Our Montgomery College colleagues, come on down. Dr. Williams and Dr. McNair and Dr. Collette, or Mr. Collette, I think. Are you a doctor yet as well? Okay, okay. Well, you got to have an honorary around somewhere around there. But okay, there we go. Good to see you all, and very pleased. We've heard you state several times, Dr. Williams, on the record that enrollment is up, so really excited to dig into that a little bit today. Good to see you, Dr. McNair, and everyone else. So why don't we start, and I'll turn to you. We're also looking forward to the East County campus, so we got the official invite, I think. So it's really or East County Center, Center campus to come years from now. But we're excited about both, but we're excited about the East County Center opening. So maybe if you have your team introduce yourselves and then kick it back to you to take the presentation away. I know you have a presentation. Just hit the mic there. There we go.
It was on, I turned it off because I was cracking my fingers. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So let's start with Dr. Campbell.
Hello, can you hear me? All right. Good afternoon, Michelle Campbell, Senior Vice President for Advancement and Community Engagement.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Brown, the Senior Vice President for Student Affairs.
Good to see you. Hello, I'm John Hammond, I'm the Chief Analytics and Insights Officer.
Sherwin Collette, Senior Vice President for Administrative and Fiscal Services.
Hello, I'm Deidre Price. I'm Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs and College Provost.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Thank you. So it's always great to be in front of you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you again for supporting the college's capital budget and your willingness to find resources for the theater arts and our IT.
We're trying. It's not done yet. We're going to try. But the full
so
council did.
Willingness to try to find.
Yeah.
Willingness to try to find those resources. And as you see, and hopefully this representation further reifies the commitment of Montgomery College to Montgomery County. Several of the individuals here they're responsible for driving institution-wide change and leading the immense divisions that are within the college. So just want to share that representation. You'll be hearing from all of them. And I know, and we know that this was identified as an enrollment work session. I just want to spend the next, maybe minute or two really centering this around Montgomery College and kind of a holistic perspective. And we think about that, we really think about the people. And the people in terms of alumni like Shaquille Stewart, who now serves as Executive Director of the Silver Spring Stage, or Jackie Flores, who is a cell therapy operations manager at AstraZeneca, and people like Paul C., HVAC graduate, who is now project manager at Shapiro and Duncan, right? So when we think about those people, we're really grounded by these 10-year kind of aspirations that we have. We call them our transformational aspirations around three things, council members, around access, completion, and post-completion success. So when we think about this, and while we're here to talk about enrollment, when we think about access and we're looking at creating a college-going culture, and we talk about metrics, we talk about how we're going to measure items, and we think about what it would be in 10 years to ensure that every single MCPS student and their family members have an educationally purposeful experience with Montgomery College by the time they're in 7th grade. Right? When we think about, what would it mean to increase the percentage of MCPS students who are coming to Montgomery College directly from high school? What would it be like to increase the number of and percentage of dual enrollment students, participating in Montgomery College while they're obviously at MCPS? So when we think about access, those are the things we think about, and we think about how you support our transformational aspirations, right? How you provide with our budget, right? How you give us the ability to keep tuition affordable. And tuition has only been increased one time in the last 4 years, right? And you contribute to that. When you think about reflecting on what you just said, Chair Jawando, you providing us with the opportunity to be in the eastern part of our county, in East County, right? That's how you uplift and help us with access. And when we think about completion, our second transformational aspiration, I won't read all of the pieces there, but really credentials that provide economic, social, and community impacts, right? So we think about increasing the number of students who graduate, but we also think about the impact, right? That every credential is going to have that type of impact. Every credential is going to lead to a family-sustaining wage. And you do that by ensuring that we have an infrastructure to create that. Right, ensuring that we have buildings to create these awesome educational experiences, ensuring that we have an IT infrastructure to create these educational experiences that lead to, economic, social, and community impacts. And last, before I just share a few things about our current situation as it relates around enrollment, is post-completion success. And some people look at this and they wonder why a community college would endeavor to impact these items. And we know that as an anchor organization in this county, we know serving the county in the way we do, it's imperative that we look at trying to leverage Montgomery College to create social transformation. So when we think about post-completion success, and we have these bold aspirations that really look at increasing the number of people who earn a family-sustaining wage. Like, we have goals of helping to decrease the gaps that we see in poverty amongst racial groups, right? That's what Montgomery College has decided to set as its North Star these transformational aspirations. And it's that context that we are here today and every day, and that context that I wanted to provide for our team to be able to share with you. So before you hear from the first presenter, I will share again, just to put a kind of a level of clarity on it. And you mentioned it, Mr. Chair, but we are up in enrollment fall over fall by 4%, about 3.8% as your documents exactly, 5% for spring over spring, and that's the second spring in a row. Projections for this coming summer and fall are also up. The immediate enrollment rate for high school graduates is ticking back up. So that'll be the percentage of MCPS students who are immediately coming to Montgomery College. We know we have a challenge with that, with about a third of MCPS students not matriculating to a post-secondary education that has credits, a credit-bearing post-secondary education within 12 months. So I'm going to repeat that. About the 14,000 to 15,000 students who graduate each year from MCPS, about a third of them do not, within 12 months, transition to a credit-bearing post-secondary education opportunity. And the statistic doesn't get much better when you look 18 months out. Right? So we have opportunities, and we're seeing an uptick in that. In some, as you know, your college is the largest community college in the state of Maryland, and the most diverse. We are the only Hispanic serving institution in the state of Maryland. 29% of our students identify as Hispanic or Latino. 1 in 4 of our students identify as African American or Black. Right? We're also an Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander serving institution, also as designated by the Department of Education. So we are here to continue to serve. We are here to continue to move the county forward. And on that note, I will share that we know that you deeply believe in Montgomery College and you support us. We also know that it's definitely been a work session, so I've asked the team to really go through, and I'm sure you will stop us when you want to, and if not, we'll answer all the questions at the end. But I've asked them to kind of keep it moving because I know you have the documents and you're all read up. So on that note, I thank you for the time, Mr. Chair, and I'll turn it over to our first presenter.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Williams.
All right. My name is John Hammond, Chief Analytics Insights Officer. I've got a lot of data here, right? So I'll try to make it slow enough that we can understand it, but keeping track of time. Right. So to give us some context, I want to start with a little bit of national and state data as we think about enrollment and how it looks at Montgomery College. So when we look over the last 15 to 20 years, nationwide college enrollment has really seen a decline, and it's hit community colleges more deeply than it has some of the four-year schools, especially during the pandemic. They were kind of the first to see the biggest impact, but also in the last couple of years have seen the greatest growth back. Right, that's true nationally, and that's true for Montgomery College as well. So if we look at the next slide, this is looking fall by fall over the last 5 fall semesters, and you can see kind of the difference about what's been happening at community colleges to our four-year peers. Enrollment was declining more at community colleges, right, but also quicker to bounce back. So when we look instead at just from fall to fall, look at the total fiscal year head count for community colleges over the last 20 years, you can see that it went from 9 million, it hit a peak around 2010 of 11 million, and then the last couple of years it's hovered just below that 9 million mark. That 2022 is the most recent national data we have. And the next slide, we see, if we look just at Maryland, we see a very similar picture, right? Again, the numbers are different, but that same idea that we were at 168, back in 2003, it peaked in 2010, and now the last couple of years, we're seeing a little bit of a dip. When we look specifically at Montgomery College, right, the middle line there is our credit-bearing courses. That's the most applicable to the previous 2 slides. But I don't want to talk just about our credit students, even though that's what gets nationally reported. From when we think about how we're supporting the students in the county, it's really important to think about what we do in our workforce development and our non-credit classes. So the top line here is showing the combined credit and non-credit classes. You can see a real similar trend. Right back in 2003, we're at 46,000. We peaked up around 62. In FY22, we had a total headcount of just under 40,000. In 23, it's just over, and I will tell you, right, the numbers aren't final for 24 yet, but we'll be slightly higher than that by the time fiscal year 24 is over. when we break this down by campus, we can see some kind of changes. The important thing to note here is that the top line here is Rockville, our biggest campus. Pre-pandemic, it was pretty easy to talk about which students were at which campus. But as soon as we started to have remote classes, students had the ability to be at multiple campuses at once without thinking about travel time or where they lived, where it was most convenient, which has been great. Right? We've been able to retain that even as we bring on-campus students back. But it does mean that it's a little bit hard to compare 2010 data to 2023 data because students have this ability to take classes. If there's a particular course or professor they want that's not immediately available, we still maintain that remote ability to get students the courses they need. Next slide.
Just on that.
Sure.
I think I'm going to encourage colleagues, if you have a question, let's do it as we go. So if you have one, then we can, because I think there's a lot of slides.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So we don't have to come back. Just the 17,000. So the trend line is the same all across, but the drop from 2012 to now at Rockville has been. It looks like it's been more precipitous than at the others. Is there any? Do you have any reason of why you think that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, so it again pre-pandemic, like if a student was at Rockville, it was a bigger lift to get to one of the other two campuses, right? You know, the travel time involved, and if you needed a particular course, a lot of courses, almost every course is offered at Rockville, right? The two other campuses have fewer course offerings. So you go to the course to the campus where you get all the courses. So there's a natural drive to get people at Rockville. Now a student who can be at Germantown, even if they need a course that was only offered at Rockville, they can often take that course remotely. Yeah. And so we now offer that course without the student having to be at that physical campus. So it's diversified where the students have to go without making them have to travel. So Rockville's gone down as the other two campuses are going up, even though that might not reflect who's physically on the campuses. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
The next slides are about high school enrollment, right? So this is students who enroll in the fall immediately after graduation. And looking at national data, you can see that for the college going right to community college, used to be around 20%. It too has been dipping since the pandemic, and nationally, for the most recent data we have, which is the 2021 fall term, it's around 19%. We see at Montgomery College, as Dr. William alluded to, that it has decreased, but you can see since the pandemic, it has come back up, and we are around that national average now, where we're seeing about 20% of our students coming in. And part of the request is to see raw numbers. So in addition to those percentages, I want to put the raw numbers down there as well, which are a little bit hard to interpret, right, because the graduating class at MCPS changes year to year. But you can get the idea that we're seeing, 2,500 students a year starting immediately at Montgomery College. Dr. Williams talked briefly about our diversity, and that's something we're really proud of, right? You can see the breakdown here and how it's changed over the years. One of the things that you have to remember when you think about our percentages of diversity is that for any one that goes up, another percentage has to come down, right? So these are not the raw numbers; these are percent of each part of the population. And so this will continue to be a net sum of 100. This is not every race ethnicity we have. These are our top 5. But as we see increases in one, others automatically do decrease. We do have some other demographic slides at the end, right, about gender and full-time, part-time stuff. So those are there for your review. These next couple of slides are just to give some sense of the course of study for our students. So these are listed on this slide as the top 5 for each of those years. You can see consistently business and general studies are where the bulk of our students go. And as we change some of our curriculum around here, we see some increase, some decrease, right? But those numbers in the top few seem relatively consistent. The next slide shows the numbers 6 through 11 for each of those years as well. Okay. And then I want to talk just a little bit about our projections, right? So we use our projections to help us determine what our budget is. We think carefully about what we need to incorporate in that. We've been using the same model for multiple years here. We use a lot of internal data in that model. We keep track of our students, our retention rates, lots of things about our own students. And then the outside pieces that we get in is we get MCPS graduates, we take the current year, right, of graduates, as well as the projections for the future years. And then we use things from the county, which are the population, as well as the 12th grade enrollment projections for surrounding counties, including DC. So we take all those things in to get kind of a one number summary, and that's what I want to focus on here. What I have graphed here is this is the 1 year out projection. We always project 5 years out, right? So the dotted line here is the 1 year out projection, and the solid line is our actual. And so over the last decade or so here, our actuals and our projections have been relatively close. You see in 2014 that was about a 6% off when we were there. It's been less than that all the way up until the pandemic. And the pandemic, our projections still were not wildly off. That was about 10.5% there. And you can see the projections have corrected, right, and came back down after we had the actual down. And so we're up a little bit from that, and again, my projection here for where we'll end up on 24 is our actuals will be above that projection on FY24 as well. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Brown.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hammond. Okay, I'd like to share a bit about how we got here as you think about our enrollment and that it is on the uptick, and just to talk a bit about the student's life cycle journey. And it's a visual representation of how students access Montgomery College, how they move through to completion, and ultimately the goal of post-completion success. Next slide, please. And in terms of some of the activities, we try to work across the college with a cross-functional collaboration to connect students, to remove barriers, to decrease the melt, if you will, and increase our yield, and refining our processes in ways that streamline our onboarding, as well as how students move through the enrollment cycle. And then in terms of our outreach to segmented student populations, our adult students, our international students, our Spanish speaking students, and ways that we are marketing, as you'll hear a bit more about from Dr. Campbell, to particular student populations and those residents we seek to serve. Next slide, please. And then to think about how we want to build collaboration and support for students, and assuring students that we want them at Montgomery College. Our You Belong Here campaign is one of the ways that we talk about that, thinking about our alignment with our ATD work and our other enrollment efforts. Again, our international student population, and ways that we partner with MCPS to just highlight the programs that we have in the summer for our youth. We talk a lot about credit, but I want to highlight that program because students can get their student service learning hours by taking and participating in those summer camps. Let's go to the next slide, please. And then just thinking about some of the expanded opportunities that we have for outreach, where we offer information sessions in Spanish, both in the high schools and throughout the community, and anywhere we can meet with community members and encourage them to learn more about Montgomery College, even suggesting that students spend their spring break coming to Montgomery College. Why spend your money elsewhere? Spend your time gaining knowledge about what Montgomery College can offer you. And then next slide, please. Looking at our application, the increase in the number of applications over the same time a year ago, and you see the increase in each session, each season, I should say. And so that certainly speaks to what we're seeing in terms of the uptick in enrollment. And then finally, again, and I did give away the whole spring break idea, but some of the other activities that we have where we're looking at our branding and our marketing that Michelle will speak to in just a moment. And then the technology that supports our work and our ability to connect with students and to track our students. You'll hear a bit about our student success platform. And then the implementation of our Raptors Care initiative, where we'll focus on our first generation students and what we like to call our at promise students, just to really focus in on those students who are coming to us as first generation students so that we can really connect with them and connect them with members of the college community. So with that, I will turn it over to our next speaker.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Brown. I'm going to talk just a little bit about strengthening access and a couple of the ways that Montgomery College has been very intentional and strategic about opening the door for more students and reducing the cost of college for those students. So for dual enrollment specifically, our college, of course, has a wide variety of ways in which it serves high school students with post-secondary education opportunities while they are currently in high school. One of the things that's most important about this is that it's all about the affordability of college and the opening of access doors for students by reducing the cost to students and families, not just of the tuition, but also associated textbook costs. One of the things that's important too is that for dual enrollment opportunities that are delivered on-site at the high schools, that additionally removes the burden of transportation costs. So this can provide a lot of additional opportunities and cost savings for parents and students, and it also gives students a leg up when it comes to the post-secondary opportunities they'll move into following high school. One of the things in addition to the cost savings that we see with dual enrollment is that it builds students' confidence. It allows them to envision themselves in college settings, and it allows them to see what that future opportunity might be to finish a credential and then move into the workforce. You can see that the number of students dually enrolled has increased exponentially. We're seeing this trend across the country, of course, but we are seeing some great leaps and bounds happen at Montgomery College. And that, of course, is very exciting for us. One of the things that these data don't show, though, is that dual enrollment used to be something that was just for general education opportunities. And so now what we're seeing with dual enrollment and what we're intentional about providing is a diversification of those opportunities for students, such that if they're interested in career education pathways, they have those opportunities alongside the Associate in Arts degree as well. You'll also see that at Montgomery College, we have increased the number of courses that are offered for dual enrollment. So again, along those same lines, going beyond those traditional offerings for dual enrollment, students have an opportunity to participate alongside traditional college students as they pursue their degree while in high school as well. And then another strategy that the college has deployed to reduce the burden of textbook costs and college costs more broadly is the implementation of Z courses and Z programs. We offer Z courses that eliminate the financial burdens of mounting textbook costs, and since 2014, our Z courses have saved students a total of approximately $14 million in textbook costs. And if you see those articles like I do, textbook costs continue to increase. So institutions do have to be very mindful of the ways in which they serve students, not just reducing that cost, but ensuring that there is that accessibility of materials and resources for college courses at all phases. And just like Dr. Hammond mentioned earlier, we do have an expansion of online courses and programs at the college. It is increasingly important that we have the same kind of access and innovative approach to the materials and textbooks that are required for those courses so students can have what they need in time to meet their course goals.
Can I just pause you there? I, of course, stepped away where I wanted to ask a question, but we went over the dual enrollment slide and how it's trending upward. We had some conversation early in our previous session that though we're trending upward, we are still not at the percentage of other parts of the state as far as how many students are dual enrolled given our size. From your perspective, I know there's one big limitation is that it can't happen from MCPS educators in their classrooms on campus. Whereas in other counties like Frederick, they can do that. They can qualify for credit and not have to physically go to Montgomery College. But from your capacity standpoint, what's the ceiling for where you all could handle? Is this, we've gone up a little bit every year. It looks like 25, just under 2,600 last year. Are we on pace to exceed that? What are the limiting factors from your perspective?
Absolutely. So I'm going to start, and then Dr. Price can share a little bit about the model and how they're offered, because it is at the college and high school. And but really quickly, and mentioning we have some community colleges in the state who are so kind of dependent on dual enrollment that it's a little bit concerning, right? So when you ask what's the capacity, it's really it's a both and.
Maybe not
So when we say it's like it might sound great, like wow, we have 30% of our population is dual enrollment. Like look at our dual enrollment. But that's 30% of your population, which means your institution is sustained by a third of it is these students who. Right. So if that changes, so when we think about it at Montgomery College, we're thinking about both and. It's not how much can we change and alter and leverage as a funding model, because that's what unfortunately it has been leveraged as a funding model where people are not coming to college in certain demographics. So like, well, let's get dual enrollment students, and people are relying on that. But we do see an opportunity to grow enrollment and access to education just widely and broadly. And with that, we think the number will increase. But if we thought about this, if we grew enrollment to 50, 60,000 and the percentage of dual enrollment stayed the same, that's a larger end, right? So it is something that we consider, Chair Jawando, but we definitely, I think there's a point where you get to be in a little bit of a danger zone.
Well, it looks like we're nowhere near that, right?
No, we're not. But I just wanted to share the kind of a more of a philosophical and practical framework before Dr. Price shares a little bit more of the program.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am relatively new to Montgomery College. I started in January, but from what I know so far, and I can tell you, thank you. Oh, it's very exciting. From my perspective, I am somebody who comes from a dual enrollment background. I was a dual enrollment student myself in high school. It provided me with immense opportunities to try something out new that I wasn't sure that I would be able to do. I will say that Montgomery College has a lot of different ways in which it packages dual enrollment, and I love the question of what is the capacity, because we are thinking of very bold strategies to try to open that door a little bit further to get more students in. And when I'm meeting with my colleagues across the state to talk through how they're doing dual enrollment, I am confident that the way in which we are proceeding into this space is the right approach. It is important to be conservative and not overestimate the solution that dual enrollment will provide with regard to a larger enrollment strategy plan. But I do think, when we're thinking about what we want to do with dual enrollment at the college, through the early college program, middle college, P-TECH, whatever it is, the goal is really making sure we're tapping into new populations, not simply the ones that would come to us anyway, because of course we would just be shifting when they're starting, not really increasing our total base. And the goal for us really is to reach the students who might not end up in college at all. And so that is the center of what we're doing. As far as the on-site opportunities for faculty or teachers in the high schools to become qualified to teach college courses, that is work that we are doing. It's work that we will continue to work to expand. And one of the things I would just clarify is those instructors would need to meet, of course, the qualifications for the faculty to teach the college courses. I know that is also done differently across the state, depending on the institution. So I'm still learning, growing, new for sure, but am excited that we will be growing, I'm sure, dual enrollment to benefit all students.
Yeah, and I'll just flag for our staff, let's come back to this issue. It's a kind of, I think, good conversation for both MCPS and Montgomery College, just to, like, as you're figuring out what your total enrollment is, and I love the idea of it being additive, not just switching students that would already come to Montgomery College. But it's one of my favorite graduations every year. I hope it's on my calendar this year. I never want to miss it. It's a huge room of awesome students who are going to do awesome things, but I would love to talk more once we get to the budget about how your strategy as you develop it to get to students that aren't currently looking at this as an opportunity, or looking at colleges or post-secondary as an opportunity at all. So,
Thank you.
So that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
So I know when it took us back, but we can go back to where you were.
Oh, absolutely. And I think this would be last for Z course. So I'll just hand it over to Dr. Campbell.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to talk about our marketing and communication strategies as they exist today, and then also talk about what we have planned going forward. We have some great things planned. So at Montgomery College, our marketing and media plan is a comprehensive plan. It includes digital as well as traditional media and marketing, and we do a lot of social media marketing and whatnot as well. So what you see on this slide is just a short list of some of the strategies and ways in which we market to our prospective students, their families, and our community. Next slide. So our marketing and communication strategy is also one that includes elevating some of the programs that are under Dr. Price, which include academic offerings, but also workforce development and continuing education. And those offerings include certifications in high demand, high wage fields throughout the county. We also do a lot of contract training for businesses who call Montgomery County home, and we design those courses and those certifications specific to the needs of our respective businesses. We also offer a large summer youth program in the summer. I have children of this age, and so I'm sure they'll be enrolling in this program come summer. And that is also a great offering that we have at the college. And we offer introductory courses at many of our community engagement centers that are located throughout the county. Next slide. So this is, while this isn't an all-inclusive list, this is just a very brief sort of highlight of some of the key messages that we kind of tease out and put some more meat behind in our marketing, our current marketing and communication strategy. So that includes quality of education that they can get at Montgomery College for nearly half the cost if they were to start at a four-year institution. We highlight the support and the opportunities that we offer at Montgomery College for students to fund their education. We have a lot of scholarship opportunities available for students. And also paid internship opportunities, which is fantastic. We have a very, as Dr. Hammond indicated, we have a very diverse student population. We're the most diverse student or community college in the continental United States. And so when we are developing and designing our messaging, we have to keep that in mind. The diverse audiences that we're speaking to, and ensuring that our messages and our visuals are speaking to our diverse student populations. Next slide. So when we plan our key messages and creative assets, and I just mentioned this, it's very important for us to choose images and creative assets in content that speak directly to key audiences. So some of our marketing right now is broader. It's more of an evergreen approach where it's marketing Montgomery College in general. But when we think about things like dual enrollment, like Dr. Price mentioned, and we think about how do we talk to families and get messages to into the K-12 space, that is a very different message and a very different visual than what it would be if we're marketing to adult learners, for example. So we have to keep all of that in mind when we're building our strategies. Next slide. All right, so with all of that said, I'm also fairly new to the college. I've been in this role since June, so coming up on a year. Very excited to be here, and so as we assess kind of where we've been, where we are currently, and where we're headed, looking towards the future, it is very essential that we continue to increase brand recognition of Montgomery College within Montgomery County and beyond. And so we intend to do this through the development of a new strategic marketing and communications plan that's very aligned to our enrollment management plan that Dr. Brown mentioned, as well as the college's strategic plan and transformational aspirations of access completion and post-completion success. And so over the next couple of years, The college will be working closely with an agency called Interact Communications. And this is to assist us in refreshing our brand and elevating the college's presence throughout the county and beyond. Interact is a women-owned business. They are a leading marketing and branding agency in the two-year college space, and we're very excited about the work we're going to be embarking on here very soon. Next slide. So this is just a brief highlight or summary of what that work is going to entail. It's a three-phased approach. Phase one is essentially conducting a marketing and communications audit of what we currently do. That's from what's in the market, doing some market research, talking to internal and external stakeholders, conducting focus groups, doing surveys, and really getting an understanding of where we are today and how we can refresh our brand identity and architecture, which will hopefully result in a new and refreshed brand story. So that's creative assets, messages that we use, content, and how we tell the story of Montgomery College to the diverse communities that we serve. Phase two is really developing a new strategic marketing strategy that's really aligned to the bold enrollment goals that we have, and bringing that all to life. And then lastly, phase three is really the implementation of the new plan, doing some message testing. So that's where when we think about our target audiences, we have specific messages that we're going to test and market to those audiences to see how those perform. And then we'll make adjustments along the way as far as how is that impacting enrollment and the goals that we have with enrollment. And that concludes my section.
Just before we move on, welcome as well. I think
Thank
it's
you.
probably maybe your first time before the council.
Yes, I was here for MCTV a few weeks back, but yes. First
Before the committee, do you have, I know you'll develop with the team, but going in, are there kind of like metrics you want to see go up or like things that you're looking for, populations you want to have increased visibility with? I'm just curious about that component.
Yes, so we do have an enrollment goal of increasing enrollment by 12% in the next several years. And so that's obviously front and center to how we design this plan and the support that our marketing plan gives to our enrollment services team. When it comes to who do we intend to market to, that's kind of where the market research will come in and the data. And we really do have to partner with John and enrollment services to look at what is the current state and where are we seeing pockets where we could absolutely increase more. So adult learners may be one of those, and where are we seeing high concentrations of certain populations of adult learners in parts of the county, and so we may decide that we want to deploy certain messages to certain target potential student populations in specific areas based on what sort of comes out of all of this.
Appreciate that. And we've been having a broader conversation about aligning around career pathways around the county and scaling that up as a comprehensive, P, 6P, whatever, however far you want to go, P employment system. And so I'm very excited about this thing. It's good timing for all of that hopefully we can link up all these conversations and just be driving them all together. So awesome. Thank you. Continue.
So as we turn our attention to the next slide, I think, and perfect. So as you've heard it, and clearly it takes a village to drive the changes in enrollment as we've described. We began with the data. The next sets of steps, as we talked about the enrollment management strategies, the ways in which we're making and continuing to make Montgomery College accessible and affordable, and the role marketing plays an important next step, gets us to how do we then use technology to help us from managing engagements with prospective students to that when they leave us and beyond, and the need for a customer relationship management system, a basis for our student success platform, is at the heart of that. How do we, in meeting the needs of our students, and again, students even conceptualize as those who don't even yet know that they want to come to Montgomery College, as we reach them and begin to shepherd them through the process, that we're ensuring that we don't lose touch with them, and we engage them all the way through their journey with us and beyond, as they may come back to us not only as alums, but certainly maybe to upskill, right skill, reskill. We see the need for the enabling technologies to support that entire process of the engagement through from recruitment through to retention, all those facets, to be able to track and have data about those touch points. We need to be able to measure what those experiences are, so that we can, by knowing better, we can do better and be better about ensuring that each experience, each touch point with a prospective student, an existing student, is what it needs to be, that they're being advised in the right ways, that we are tending to their needs for supports to ensure their success, and for their families as well. And also on this platform that we've just begun to develop, it's also about enhancing our ability to use data more effectively and inform each of those data points, and as part of the platform, it includes analytics and insights that take us to those predictive spaces as well, so that we're able to know more deeply the types of experiences and how we may adjust, meter, so that the experience is optimal for each student across their journey with us. So this comprehensive approach, as I noted, is really a full-service, high-touch, supports what I like to describe as a sort of a white glove engagement with our students, and again, students from those who we are seeking to engage and starting to touch all the way through their engagement and their time at the institution. And it's really not only on the front side, but it's a really important element in supporting our ability to retain our students as well. And so I'll just kick it back to Dr. Williams.
Thank you, team. And as we close in the next minute or two, we're going to end with what we started with, and this is the impact that we seek to have. The impact that I know that you and so many others in the county want us to have in terms of access, completion, and post-completion success. And while I'm hopeful we answered your questions, I'm also hopeful that we have put this around a larger context in terms of not only what is happening with numbers, but how the way in which we are stewards of resources, and how we are leveraging the resources that we have and the resources that we seek to really move towards impact through technology, through marketing, through people and human capital strategy. And on that last note, I will share with you, who's also in the audience when we talk about impact, is Dr. Kimberly McNair, who is our Associate Senior Vice President for Enrollment. Right, this is a role that we did not have when I joined the college. Not a person in the role, at least. Right, so when we think about how Montgomery College not only wants to have impact, but how we're leveraging the resources that we're extremely thankful for in a way to actually get us towards that impact. Hopefully, this presentation today has illustrated a little bit of that. So we thank you for your time, and as always, we thank you for your support. If there are additional questions, comments, we'd love to embrace those.
Well, thank you. And this was I appreciate what thought that went into the presentation, but also how quickly you moved through it. So thank you very much. You mentioned the 12% goal. Just over where did that come from, and when was it set? And over how many years? Like, what's the upward trajectory towards that?
So I'm going to ask Dr.
How many students are today at Montgomery College right now, this moment?
A little over 40,000, right? 40,003 fiscal year 40,003-ish. And I'm going to ask Dr. Brown to really talk about that, because I think this is an exciting opportunity in terms of the length of the plan, the kind of really immediate goals, and then looking towards the long term. So, Dr. Brown?
Certainly. Thank you, Dr. Williams. The idea is to set a bold goal for what we know we can do and also what we need to do to increase enrollment. When we talk about the 12%, and Dr. McNair and I talked about this meeting with the senior vice president to think about what that would be. And so we looked at where we were at the time and the strategies that we would put in place, and also thinking about it over a 2-year period to do some immediate work and start to see an immediate increase in enrollment, and we're seeing that. But then thinking about it over a longer period as well. And this includes our credit and non-credit students, so that we can build a bridge between students who are taking credit classes and those who are taking non-credit classes, so that 12% is inclusive of both.
So over a 2-year period.
Over a 2-year period in this first iteration of our our enrollment management.
So the goal is
plan.
up 12% in 2 years.
Yes, sir.
Got it. And I like that. That is bold. So that's just under 5,000 more students. So that would get you around 45,000 students. Then that's the goal.
That is the goal.
All right. I like bold goals. We all do up here. You know?
Yes.
And the other question I had, and then I'll turn to Councilmember Albanaz. The race and ethnicity slide was interesting to me and kind of ties into, I think, everything you're talking about. It looked like Asian enrollment has been steady for like the last 10 years. It looks like around 13%. We saw a slight dip in immigrant enrollment, but still around 9%, not much. But the big changes were white population going down from 26 in 2014 to 19 now, and then the African American, black and Latino kind of going crisscrossing, Latino going up and black kind of trending down. But it looks like it might be trying to tick up here at the end here. So anything you all are thinking about in relation to that and how you're going to market and like just trend lines? And I know this is only a 10-year period. I don't know what it would look like, prior to that, but yeah, not a decrease in numbers, right? Yeah, the enrollment has gone up, but who's coming, who the people are has slightly changed. So
I'm
part of that's reflective of us just changing as a community.
And thank you for that lead-in. I'll turn over to Dr. Hammond or Dr. Brown after this. But quickly, I want to say it provides us with an opportunity to look at equity-focused and data-informed approaches to enhancing access to education, or some people we call enrollment, right? Because we don't want the increase in, let's say, our Hispanic or Latino population to go up just because there's more people identified as Hispanic or Latino. It doesn't necessarily mean we're serving that community or any community well. It's just by sheer nature of the fact that there's more people who identify in a certain population, right? So when I look at this, and I know we look at, and Dr. Hammond can talk more about the long term in terms of history, it's really how do we equitably serve the populations who are here. So, and I'll for any further.
Yeah, right. I mean, so to answer the question about the longer term, and one of the reasons why I only went back to 2014 on that slide instead of further back is because, race ethnicity is a complicated thing, and we have changed. I mean, and by we, I mean the U.S. Department of Education has changed how we have to report that, right? So the kind of behind the scenes piece from how a student identifies by both the race and ethnicity has changed. The biggest change, in fact, from the pre-2014 is a student who would identify as Hispanic and black, for example, would have been categorized as two race in the before 2010, right? And now they're categorized as Hispanic, right? And so when you look at those trend lines over longer than 10 years, it takes some nuance to understand, is it people just changing how they're being identified, or is it really a change in the population for who's coming? And we continue to see that because, even though it didn't make the slide, we still have 2 or more races as an option on our application. And even though we know, from looking at the county demographics and stuff, that population is growing, we don't see more people selecting that, which is partly maybe because of who is serving, but also partly because of how students are choosing to self-identify in the race ethnicity. So the fact that there's a lot of, I would say, complication in how people identify when they apply to the college, we have to have that as kind of a backdrop as how we think about how we interpret this data. But I will let either Dr. Brown or Dr. Campbell talk a little about marketing pieces and how we may do some distinguishing on that.
Marketing pieces. Well, I mean, this is obviously a very important point, because the way that we market to certain populations, the languages that we use. I mean, much of our marketing right now is tailoring to the diverse communities that we serve, and it's something that when we go through this process of a brand refresh and looking at what we do now, part of looking at and assessing what our current strategy is and the success of it, or the areas where we may need to make some changes, is to look at where are we not serving, the community well, or where are we falling short, and where do we need to focus more. But to the enrollment management piece of it is, what are our goals? Are we looking to increase the percentage of adult learners, for example, in certain spaces? If so, then that needs to be part of the strategy. If we're looking to increase our dual enrollment population by a certain percent to contribute to that 12% goal, that also has to be a factor in how we're developing the marketing plan.
And I would add that enrollment isn't just about who we attract and bringing in new people. It's about how we retain people. And so having programs that support our students, students of color, and all students, as we know, every program that we have that is specific to a particular student population, it benefits all students. So we have our Presidential Scholars Program that I'll mention, that is for any and all students who are focused on increasing the number of African American male students and their success at Montgomery College, but then on to their post-completion success by being able to move into high-wage earning positions and careers. And so being bold about not only increasing enrollment, but retaining students and making sure they are successful, and speaking to their needs and meeting them at their point of needs. We're looking at our parenting students and making Montgomery College a more family-friendly environment, so that our parenting students feel they belong and see themselves there. And so that's a big part of sustaining and retaining our students in a way that also speaks to enrollment, and making sure we are identifying and seeing them and providing opportunities and support for them, again, meeting them at their point of need.
I really appreciate that. Dr. Williams saying, look, we're a diverse county, so we're going to have, hopefully reflect that, but being intentional about the groups and subgroups and speaking to them appropriately, supporting them once they're there, getting them enrolled. One of the most powerful things that I went to up at the Germantown campus is, I think you all hosted a couple of years ago, you may do it every year, all the young black male students from
the Maryland Male
all the
Students of
state
Color Summit.
community
Yes.
colleges. That was a powerful room.
Yes, and you were a wonderful speaker.
Well, I wasn't going to say that, but thanks. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I just think taking that care, when you are the most diverse community college in the country, special care has to be taken in making sure we're meeting the needs of all the diverse populations, both in speaking to them appropriately, but also retaining and making sure they succeed. And then obviously, and so I'm assuming as part of this, there'll be goals and sub-goals within that 5,000 based on who's there, I would hope, so turn to Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you so much. Headline here is Montgomery College is doing really fantastic work. No surprise, just very, very impressed as usual. Just a couple of questions. Do we have, and I think you've shared this data point before, but the percentage of students who are the first in their families to go to college?
So I'm going to, Dr. Hammond, it's an interesting question, Councilmember Alvarez, because people are operationalizing that in a different way. For the first generation you were very succinct in, first to go to college. This idea of first generation is what is kind of used in higher education and as being kind of nuanced to, are you the first to receive a degree? Are you the first to receive a 4-year degree? If your parent, went to and for a semester, are you still the first in your family to go to college or not? So I just wanted a level of nuance there, but Dr. Hammond can speak to that.
Well, I appreciate that. Normally, I'm the definition guy. So you weigh in on that. It's spot on. So our numbers change depending on how you kind of define that. But when we ask the question to our students, just as a survey question, where we say, "Do you consider yourself first gen?" where we don't define it, we get about 50% of our students saying that. So again, slightly different definitions will yield slightly different results, but about half of our students are first generation by almost any measure.
That's important. That's really cool. And then, do we have a gender breakdown? I didn't see that, but it's probably in there somewhere.
It is off the top of my head. I feel like it's 52-48, but I'd be going from.
It's one of the slides in the additional information behind towards the end.
The slides on top of the slides.
Correct.
The appendix.
The after part.
What is it?
Do you have it?
53%.
Yeah.
53% female, 46% male.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. That's pretty even. Thank you. I was curious about that. I love the emphasis on student life. I know you all have so many different activities. I'd love to see athletics in the slides because it's such a wonderful, placemaking activity, and Montgomery College is really competing regionally and nationally. And so that would be a really cool thing to highlight. I was not aware of the summer youth program. I'm going to look into it. We were comparing notes with Councilmember Jawando to see what's available. Putting in a plug for summer athletics and sports camps. I can tell you all have fantastic facilities that you should be taking better advantage of. These are revenue-making opportunities for the college, but also wonderful enrichment activities, and you would uniquely be able to make them a little bit more affordable than what some families have available to them, which would be yet another way of introducing the next generation of students to various campuses in a way that could be really intriguing. I've shared this story publicly before. I transferred to the University of Maryland my sophomore year, and if I had to do it all over again, I would have just gone to Montgomery College my freshman year. And so I think, highlighting those personal experiences, and I love, Dr. Williams, when you started with the stories of 3 of your graduates. I've encouraged you to do that for a while. That was awesome. So continue to do that because that makes it very real for all of us and the public, people that have been extraordinarily successful recently, which I think is fabulous. I had a question about the alumni network. I know we have one. I know we're engaging with them. My mom and dad are alum, which I talk about often, but just highlighting a little bit about those activities and what's in the works there, because those are obviously our strongest champions by far, people who've had the experience themselves.
And thank you, Councilmember Albertaz. And that's actually under Dr. Campbell's portfolio, one of the many things. And we have an alumni event coming up. We always have an alumni event coming up, but we have one of our biggest coming up. So we'll make sure we get that to you. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Campbell to share a little bit more detail about the Alumni Association.
Yes, so we do have a very active alumni association. They hold their separate 501c3 status. And we have 3 staff that kind of oversee alumni relations, and part of their job beyond just engaging alums and keeping them active is fundraising for alumni related activities and for our students, our current students. So we have, I don't want to misquote the number of alums we have in our current database, but I feel like it's close to 100,000 or over. So we do actually have for a 2-year institution a pretty large alumni program. So
great. Thank you. Excited, and whatever we can do to continue to support you guys, we're going to try to do. So thank you. I yield back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Mink.
I just wish everything worked as well as Montgomery College did. This is fantastic. So thank you all so much for your work, and you're presenting such well thought through and responsive plans and strategies and the data and all of this, and it's. I keep thinking about how your operating budget, you're doing this all, you're asking for us for like a maintenance of effort operating budget, so just very much appreciated. One side note, I think this was in one of the kind of extra slides too. I thought it was really interesting. Maybe it's not that interesting, but it was interesting to me that the percentages of those who are attending part-time and full-time over the whole graph, the entire, all 20 years that are shown on the graph are like remarkably consistent, like 2/3 part-time, 1/3 full-time. What is with that? Is that true? Is that like consistent across all community colleges over time? I mean, despite some demographic changes and despite changes in like the career and workforce world, I was so surprised by how consistent that was.
And thank you, Councilmember Mink. And I'm going to ask Dr. Hammond to follow up about a national perspective and even farther back in terms of Montgomery College. But I think it speaks to the beautiful diversity of the students who we serve and what's going on in their lives. You've heard a little bit about, and I know, Councilmember Albanaz, you've been to the mobile market. And I've shared with the council before, with this committee before, based on the last administration of a basic needs survey, that we had 36% of our students identified a level of food insecurity in the last 30 days. 36%. 14 to 18% because we offer different instruments. 14 to 18% of our students are parenting students. All right, about 1 in 5 of our students are Pell recipients. And of that 20% of our students, the average annual income for those students is $28,000. Right, so I think this part-time, full-time, and I know Dr. Hammond had more to share, really represents the diversity and the realness, the lived experiences, and the opportunities for changing lives that Montgomery College provides. And on that note, I know Dr. Hammond can share a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question, and it is remarkable that it has stayed so consistent despite all the different changes that we've seen in our student population and the economy and everything else. It is not the norm. I mean, we can find community colleges not far from us that have 80% full time. We can find other ones that are almost 90% part time, and so I think it really represents kind of a reflection of the county. Right. I mean, we have a lot of people who are coming to Montgomery College for lots of different reasons. And, at any given time, when we look at the students who first start in here, a lot of them start as full-time students when they first come in, the 18 to 20 bracket. But those are often here and done within 2 years, right? And that's the goal. But then we also have a lot of students who come in knowing that it's going to take them much longer, right? And those students that come in part-time stay here much longer, right? So even though a preponderance of our new students come in full-time, over the longer term, we end up with this, about 2/3 that are part-time. And that has to do with those that Dr. Williams mentioned. Some are parents, right, and doing full time is not possible. Some do it for monetary reasons; they can't afford to take as many classes. Some are doing it because they really want to fit this in around work time or other obligations in their lives. So we do kind of track and talk to students, but this represents for the most part what students want to do for their collegiate experience.
Well, I certainly feel very proud of those numbers here because we have enormous and growing enrollment numbers and expanding campuses. And so I think as we look at that share of part-time students, a lot of that growth, that then if this is not the same breakdown that we're seeing in other jurisdictions, I would assume that a lot of that growth in the part-time numbers is because you all have made Montgomery College accessible to more people than colleges accessible to in other locations. So that's fantastic. And I'll just note that as things move forward, I'm going to continue to speak it into existence, but the money is going to do that too with the East County campus. I look forward to hearing about your strategy for outreach there. And, as you're thinking about working with the community, building out a facility and programming that's responsive to the community, it would be great for us to kind of follow along with the good work that you're doing there. I know, of course, we have a little bit of that with the Education Center, and as we do check-ins, and we'll get to hear about that too, but I think it's an exciting opportunity as you move forward with the campus for us and for the public to get a view of the strategies that you all are employing for that type of outreach. Thanks.
Absolutely. We like forward thinking. I went to ask the program that we have in the state to provide tuition for every student that graduates over a certain GPA. I think it's 2.5. I don't know what it is. Susan, is it 3.0? It's something around there. How is that going? Yeah. How are we our students taking advantage of that? Is it working well? I've heard mixed reviews.
I will. I'm going to pass this to the person who can, answer it most appropriately, which I think is Dr. Brown. She can start us off.
So we're talking about the Promise.
Yes, Maryland Promise
Scholarship. Yes, so the Maryland Promise Scholarship. I would say it's getting better. One is because now the colleges have oversight of it, and we're able to get out to the students a lot quicker and sooner than when it was coming through one source, MHEC. So now that the colleges have the responsibility, we anticipate it being used, more of the money being used, because we know the needs are there. We know students can benefit from it, and so that is our goal now that we, in each community college, not just Montgomery College, but all 16, we are now the ones who are responsible for getting the information out and getting the money out, and so we expect to see more of that money used, because we certainly know that there are students who need it.
Yeah, and when did that change?
That changed this year. This is the first year that we have the ultimate responsibility.
Coming up this fall.
I'm sorry.
Is that coming up this fall?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'd love to, Mr. Krupe, come back on this, and if you all could prepare, just like since it's been into existence, I don't know, it's 3 or 4 years now. I can't remember. Just how many students have used it. I know there were problems, and just kind of where we are, the trend line on that. Councilmember Albanaz and I introduced on Tuesday the Child Investment Fund. Councilmember Mink is a co-sponsor. We think that will put $1,800 in an account that's invested, and then in 18 years, one of the 4 allowed expenses of that fund for a county resident is educational expenses. So we're investing in Montgomery College's future enrollment growth, and as well as other institutions, hopefully. But it's one of those things we're very excited about, and but I wanted to see how this program was working just in the context of, so if we could follow up on that. Anything else from colleagues? Okay, well, as was stated by my colleagues, we're so pleased with the work and appreciate the presentation today and all the information, and we'll forward this. This is a great deck, so thank you for pulling it together. Even greater how quickly you moved through it, and we look forward to seeing you all for the operating budget. So thank you. With that,
Thank
we're
you, Chair.
adjourned.
Thank you, Chair Jawanda. Thank you, Councilmember Mink. Thank you, Councilmember Albanaz. Have a great day.
Interlude from Old Georgetown Road, Maryland 187 to Georgia Avenue, Maryland 97.